Why should I make food for you? You're not family to me. I don't even consider you family. Don't get too comfortable here. Why are you even in this house? I invited my son and granddaughter to visit so I could spend time with my family. Can you give us some space? The room felt awkward in my parents-in-law's house. My mother-in-law, who I tried to avoid whenever we met, was a huge problem for me. But one day, Mommy, oh my God, it's Grandma. What happened? I felt terrified and my heart was racing. My daughter told me what had happened. My name is Victoria. I married Jerry when I was 25 and had my daughter Olivia when I was 29. I stopped working and became a housewife after getting married. Now I'm 39 and my small family of 3 lives in a rented apartment. Life is good, but there's one big issue. Jerry's mom, Judy. She's always been a headache. She makes me miserable. She told me she doesn't accept me as part of the family. While she didn't directly oppose our marriage, she has been rude to me from the start. She used to show up without warning, get into my house, and complain about my cleaning and cooking. Before I was pregnant with Olivia, she made unreasonable demands like wanting me to have a boy. She even gave me her old clothes and said, "They will look good on you." Once, she even sent me rotten vegetables without asking. In short, she's done everything to make me feel bad. What keeps me going is that Jerry and Olivia always support me. When Judy and I fight, Jerry steps in. Olivia even tells her, "I don't like it when you say bad things about my mom." Whenever I visit my in-laws, Judy makes snarky comments about me, even in front of Brian, Jerry's dad. Brian tells her off, but she doesn't care and keeps treating me badly like it's normal. One day, Olivia came home from school looking sad. Usually, she greets me with a big "Mom, I'm home." But today, she was quiet. "Sweetie, you're home. What's wrong? Are you okay? Are you sick?" "Nothing, Mom. I'm fine." She tried to brush it off, but I could tell something was wrong. She kept looking deep in thought. Even though she smiled later, I knew something bothered her. I didn't want to pressure her, but I couldn't just ignore it. That night, Jerry had to work late, so it was just the 2 of us for dinner. I thought she might open up then. As she ate her mac and cheese slowly, I started talking to her. "I'm worried about you. When you say you're fine, it's not always true. I won't tell anyone, and I won't get angry. I'm always on your side. Can you tell me what happened?" She put her fork down and stayed quiet for a while. Then she decided to tell me what happened. She explained it as best as a 10-year-old could. She had gone to play at a friend's house after school, just 15 minutes away. The friend's mom usually drove her back home. On the way back, when the car stopped at a red light, she saw Judy with a man she didn't know. She even saw them kissing. As soon as Olivia realized it was her grandmother, she ducked down to avoid being seen. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The idea of Judy being affectionate with another man, so close to where we live, was shocking. It must have been really upsetting for a 10-year-old to see something like that. It seemed like Judy was involved in something inappropriate. To comfort Olivia, I went to the local store and bought her favorite ice cream. Normally, I wouldn't give her sweets before bed, but today was different. She had been feeling down for a while, but she seemed a little better after having the ice cream. By the time she finished, she seemed almost back to normal. Still, I knew her heart was hurt. I decided to keep an eye on her for a while. Later, Jerry came home from work, tired, just half an hour after Olivia went to sleep. I didn't want to tell him about his mother's affair, but I couldn't keep it from him. I told him exactly what Olivia had said. Jerry had been relaxing in the living room, but when he heard what happened, he covered his mouth with his hand and quickly walked to the kitchen. He came back looking shaky and said seriously. I could tell he was hurt and disgusted. After he calmed down, we started talking about what to do next. "What should we do? Should we tell Brian?" he asked. "We can't just leave it like this. If we tell him, we need more proof." I'm worried that Judy could make excuses with just Olivia's story. I agreed. We decided to hire a private investigator to look into Judy's affair. The investigator worked quickly and got us the evidence we needed. One of the photos showed Judy dressed in a way that didn't suit her age, hugging a young man. It was hard to see, but I had to face the truth. The investigator also found out who the young man was. He was a college student who was looking for older women. Judy had been giving him a lot of money, and there was even a picture of them shopping together at a fancy store. It didn't look like an affair. It seemed like she was being taken advantage of. Still, there was no doubt she was cheating, and she knew it was wrong. Now we had the proof to confront her. We just had to figure out when to tell Brian. While we were waiting for the right time, Judy called Jerry and asked him to come over that weekend. The timing couldn't have been better. If I went there, I was sure she would find a way to treat me badly. But if that happened, I could reveal everything. Who would be laughing in the end? The weekend arrived, and I usually dreaded visiting Judy, but today was different. I couldn't wait to expose her lies. As we arrived at my in-laws' house, Judy opened the door with a smile. "Ah, you're here. Hi, Jerry and Olivia. Welcome. I made a delicious lunch for you. Come in." As expected, Judy started her bullying right away. She acted like I wasn't there, turning her back to me and avoiding eye contact. Even though it irritated me, I tried to stay calm. Jerry was about to say something to her, but I stopped him. We had to be patient. It was better to let her keep acting like this and then reveal everything when we were in the living room. Brian was sitting on the sofa, watching TV. "Oh, Victoria, Olivia, and Jerry, welcome. Nothing exciting here, but make yourselves at home," he said. He always said my name first. It might have been nothing to him, but it always made me so happy. As we said hello, Judy smiled and said, "We got lunch delivered. Come, eat with us. I'm sure it's delicious." She set the plates on the table. The lunch was Thai food, papaya salad, pad thai, green curry, tom yum soup, and more. It looked great, but I was allergic to coriander, and Judy knew that. "You know, Judy, I'm allergic to coriander. I can't eat most of this," I said. She waved me off. "I know." Then she started speaking as if everything had built up inside her. "I don't need you to tell me what you're allergic to. I didn't make food for you anyway. My family is just me, Brian, Jerry, and Olivia. Why are you even here? I invited Jerry and Olivia, not you. You're so rude." She kept going. "Let me tell you something, Victoria. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're a lazy housewife who doesn't even do housework and just sits around. You don't work, and you don't take care of your house. What do you do all day? Are you having an affair or something?" "Who knows?" "Me? Having an affair?" I said, shocked. Jerry, standing next to me, looked disappointed. It was about time. I couldn't believe Judy was bringing up such a perfect topic. I asked Jerry if I could speak up, and he nodded eagerly. She had been so nasty to me and even traumatized Olivia. It was time to confront her. I took out the photos from my bag and handed them to Brian, not Judy. At first, they both looked confused, but once they realized what they were looking at, their faces changed. Brian's turned red, and Judy's went pale. I couldn't help but notice the difference. "What are these?" Brian asked. "These are photos of Judy having an affair with a young man," I said calmly. Olivia saw them together. She thought I was having an affair, but it looks like she was talking about herself. "No, that's not true. I'm not having an affair with Justin. It's just," Judy panicked and accidentally said the young man's name. Brian got even angrier. "Who's Justin?" "I heard you gave him a lot of money, maybe a couple thousand or even more," I said. "You're a housewife too. Where did all that money come from? It can't be from Brian, right?" I pressed. "You're so cruel. You shouldn't take advantage of his kindness." I took the chance to push her even harder. Judy was shocked, and though she tried to speak, no words came out. She probably never expected me to stand up to her. "Mom, you've been so good to her, haven't you?" "Why are you cheating on him?" Olivia said, speaking up. "I'm ashamed of you. Not only did you bully Victoria, but you're doing horrible things behind Grandpa's back. You don't love him. I'm sorry for him. I don't like you, Grandma." Jerry and Olivia both stared at her, angry. I knew something was wrong. "You've been sneaking around lately. I checked the bank account and saw you've been withdrawing money little by little. I never thought you'd be having an affair with someone so young." Brian shook his head in disbelief. Judy, feeling cornered, suddenly stood tall and lifted her chin defiantly. "What I do is none of your business. I'll live my life the way I want to," she declared. Brian shouted angrily at her, demanding she leave the house. His anger didn't fade, and soon the two of them filed for a divorce. Judy had no job or savings, so she couldn't send money to Justin anymore. He left her. "How did I find out?" Judy told me herself. She was desperate and came to our house, hoping we would feel sorry for her after hearing about her situation. I have no one else. Please, I'm sorry, Victoria, she begged. I don't trust you anymore. Why don't you live your life the way you said you would before? It's not my problem, I replied. Of course, we didn't feel sorry for her. I could never forgive her for what she did to Olivia. In the end, we had to call the police to remove her from our home. Brian had told all the relatives about Judy's affair and how she treated me, so she couldn't count on him either. I heard she was living alone in a cheap apartment and still paying alimony. She had truly brought all of this on herself. Meanwhile, Brian decided to move in with us. After being alone, he's become better with kids than I expected. He takes Olivia out on weekends, and she enjoys spending time with him. She's slowly starting to forget about Judy. He's also helping me with the housework, saying he feels bad living here for free. At first, I had to teach him everything, but now he can do it all by himself and even cooks dinner for us. Thanks to him, I'm able to work part-time. It took me some time to adjust after such a long break, but I really enjoy being outside the house. I'm even thinking about getting a certification. Since Brian moved in, our life has definitely improved. He protected me when Judy mistreated me, and he's still helping me in so many ways. Judy was truly foolish to betray such a good man. I've learned from all of this not to give in to immediate desires and to be thankful for the happiness I have now.
I stared at the divorce papers on my kitchen counter, the morning sun streaming through the window, making the words, irreconcilable differences, seem to glow mockingly. My perfectly manicured hands, always kept pristine to match Henry's executive wife expectations, trembled as I reached for my coffee mug. My name is Grace, and until 20 minutes ago, I thought I was living the perfect life. You've become predictable, Henry had said, standing in our marble-floored foyer with his designer briefcase in hand. I need someone who challenges me, who excites me. You're a boring housewife, Grace. The words still rang in my ears as I mechanically wiped invisible crumbs from our spotless granite countertop. 12 years of marriage reduced to a single word. Boring. My phone buzzed. Whitney's name flashed on the screen. Tell me you're not still cleaning, she said when I answered. I'm not cleaning, I lied, putting down the cloth. Liar, I can hear you straightening things. Stop it and let me come over. I glanced at the clock. 9:15 a.m. Don't you have work? My best friend's husband just asked for a divorce. Work can wait. As we hold this moment of tension, we're collecting viewer locations for our community map. City, state, country, whatever you're comfortable sharing. And if you want daily journeys of justice, that subscribe button is waiting. Let's continue. 30 minutes later, Whitney sat across from me at my kitchen island, her dark eyes fixed on my face as I recounted the morning's events. He actually said boring housewife? She asked, incredulous. The same man whose company would have gone bankrupt 3 years ago if you hadn't secretly invested your inheritance? I shushed her, though we were alone. He doesn't know about that. Nobody does, except you and Blaze. Maybe it's time he found out. I shook my head. It doesn't matter now. My phone buzzed again. A text from my sister Ella. Can we talk? It's important. Ignore it, Whitney advised, but I was already opening the message. It's Ella. She never texts me this early. Grace? Whitney's tone held a warning I couldn't quite understand. My phone rang. Ella calling now. I answered on speaker. Grace? Ella's voice sounded strange, guilty. I need to tell you something. I've been seeing Henry. The world tilted sideways. My pristine kitchen, with its carefully arranged copper pots and color-coded spice rack, suddenly felt like a stage set, artificial and hollow. How long? The words came out surprisingly steady. 6 months. A pause. We're in love. Whitney reached across the counter and gripped my hand. I stared at our joined fingers, noticing how my wedding ring caught the light. Does Mom know? I asked, though I wasn't sure why that mattered. She thinks it's for the best. Says maybe it was meant to be this way. You know how you've always been so traditional? Traditional, boring. The synonyms piled up. I have to go, I said, and hung up. Whitney watched me carefully. Grace? I stood up, walked to my carefully organized desk, and pulled out a leather portfolio. Inside were documents Blaze had drawn up years ago, papers that proved my quiet involvement in Henry's company, my signature on loans that had saved his family's legacy. Call Blaze, I told Whitney. Tell him it's time to withdraw everything. Everything? I nodded, finally removing my wedding ring. Henry wants excitement? Let's see how exciting bankruptcy can be. Whitney's smile was slow and fierce. There's my girl. I looked around at my perfect kitchen, at the life I'd built around Henry's needs and wants. In our bedroom upstairs, a locked trunk held my old art supplies, dreams I'd packed away when Henry said a corporate wife needed to focus on networking, not painting. You know what the funny thing is? I said, running my finger along the counter's edge. He's right. I did become boring. I made myself boring for him. So, what are you going to do about it? I picked up my phone and typed a quick message to Blaze. Meeting tomorrow, bringing everything. I'm going to remember who I was before I became Mrs. Henry Pierce. I opened a drawer and pulled out a real estate magazine I'd been hiding. Starting with buying that gallery space on Mason Street I've had my eye on. Whitney raised her eyebrows. The one Henry said was a waste of money? That's the one. I smiled, and for the first time that morning, it felt real. Let's see how boring things get when I stop being the perfect wife and start being myself. My phone buzzed again, Henry this time. I declined the call and turned off my phone. Want to help me clean out my art studio? I asked Whitney. She looked confused. You don't have an art studio. I grabbed my keys. Not yet, but I will. And Henry's about to learn that his boring housewife has been anything but boring all along. The family dinner table had never felt so small. My mother sat across from me, hands folded primly over her designer napkin, while my father studied his wine glass as if it held the secrets of the universe. Between them sat Ella, wearing the guilty expression of a child caught stealing cookies, except what she'd stolen was my husband. I just don't understand why you're being so difficult about this, Grace, my mother said, cutting her chicken into precise squares. These things happen in the best families. These things? I echoed, my fork clattering against my plate. My husband and sister having an affair is just these things to you? Well, my father finally spoke, still not meeting my eyes. Henry has always been more compatible with Ella's energy. I felt my chest tighten. Compatible with her energy? Dad, I've been married to him for 12 years. And maybe that's long enough, my mother interjected smoothly. You've always been so settled, dear. Perhaps this is an opportunity for you to find someone more your speed. Ella reached across the table trying to touch my hand. I pulled back before she could. Grace, please, we didn't mean for this to happen. It just did. Just happened? I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Did you just happen to fall into his bed too? Grace? My mother's scandalized tone made me want to scream. No, Mom, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how my perfect little sister decided my husband was just another thing of mine she wanted to try on. Ella's face crumpled. That's not fair. We're in love. Love? I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Was it love when you helped him pick out my birthday present last month? Was it love when you sat next to me at Sunday dinners, knowing you were sleeping with my husband? You don't understand, Ella pleaded. Henry needs someone who can keep up with him, someone who isn't boring. I finished for her. Yeah, I've heard that one already. My phone buzzed in my purse, probably Whitney checking on me. I'd promised to call her after this disaster of a dinner. Sit down, Grace, my father commanded, using his courtroom voice. We're trying to handle this like adults. Like adults? I pulled out my phone, checking the notification. It wasn't Whitney. It was an email from Blaze confirming our meeting tomorrow. You want to handle this like adults? Fine. Let's talk about how Henry's company is doing. Ella's face went pale. What do you mean? Oh, didn't he tell you? The family business isn't quite as stable as it appears. My mother's fork paused halfway to her mouth. What are you talking about? Henry said everything was fine. Did he? I smiled, remembering all the board meetings I'd sat through silently, all the late-night number crunching I'd done while Henry was at his networking events, with my sister, apparently. Interesting. Grace? Ella's voice wavered. What did you do? Nothing yet, but tomorrow I'm going to do exactly what a boring housewife would never do. My father's lawyer instincts finally kicked in. You're not making sense, Grace. What involvement could you possibly have in Henry's company? I grabbed my purse and stood up. You'll find out soon enough. But here's a preview. Remember that inheritance from Grandma Rose? The one everyone thought I spent on renovating our house? The color drained from my mother's face. Grace, you didn't. I did. Every penny went into saving Henry's precious family legacy. And now I'm taking it all back. Ella jumped up. You can't. Henry's worked so hard. To what? Build a company he could only keep afloat because of his boring wife's money? I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Ella, those Jimmy Choos you're wearing? The ones Henry bought you last month? I paid for those, too. My mother called after me as I walked out, but I didn't stop. In my car, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. My phone buzzed again. Whitney. How'd it go? She asked when I answered. About as well as expected. They think I'm being unreasonable. Screw them. Did you tell them about the company? I started the engine. Gave them a hint. They'll know everything by this time tomorrow anyway. Good. Hey, I drove by that gallery space earlier. It's still available. I pulled out of my parents' driveway, catching a glimpse of Ella watching from the window. Schedule a viewing for next week. After all, I'm about to have some capital to invest. That's my girl. Want to grab a drink? I thought about my perfect kitchen at home, where I'd spent years making myself smaller, quieter, more boring. Yes, but not at our usual place. I'm done being predictable. Whitney laughed. Lead the way, boss. Oh, and Grace, you're gonna be okay. Looking in my rearview mirror at my parents' house growing smaller, I realized I already was. I know, for the first time in years, I actually know that for sure. Are you absolutely sure about this? Blaze asked, his reading glasses perched on the edge of his nose as he reviewed the paperwork spread across his desk. Once we start this process, there's no turning back. I leaned forward in my chair, my voice steady. I've never been more sure of anything. Whitney, sitting beside me, squeezed my hand as Blaze began explaining the procedure. The loans will be called in first thing tomorrow morning. Given the company's current cash flow situation, they won't be able to cover them. How long until Henry notices? Whitney asked. Hours, Blaze said, signing the last document. Maybe minutes. The CFO will alert him as soon as the notifications come in. My phone rang, Henry's face appearing on the screen. I showed it to Blaze, who checked his watch and grinned. Make that seconds. I declined the call. Within moments, 3 text messages popped up. Grace, what's happening? The bank is calling in our loans. Answer your phone. Should I be enjoying this so much? I asked Whitney. Absolutely, she replied, just as my phone started ringing again. This time I answered and put it on speaker. Hello, Henry. What the hell is going on? His voice cracked with panic. The bank just called in every loan. They're saying the guarantor withdrew support. What did you do? Me? I examined my nails, still perfectly manicured, but now painted a bold red instead of his preferred nude. I'm just a boring housewife, remember? What could I possibly do? Grace. His tone shifted to the one he used when he thought I was being difficult. This isn't funny. We're talking about my family's company. No, I corrected him. We're talking about the company I saved 3 years ago, the one I've been quietly supporting while you took all the credit. Silence filled the line. Then, what are you talking about? Blaze cleared his throat. Mr. Pierce, this is Blaze Thornton. I'm Mrs. Pierce's attorney. Perhaps we should schedule a meeting to discuss the situation? You have a lawyer? Henry's voice rose an octave. Since when do you have a lawyer? Since I decided to stop being boring, I replied. Oh, and Henry, how's Ella doing? Have you told her about the company's real financial situation yet? More silence, then the sound of him swallowing hard. Grace, please, let's talk about this. We are talking. In fact, I'm finally saying all the things I should have said years ago. The company will collapse without those loans, he pleaded. People will lose their jobs. You should have thought about that before you started sleeping with my sister. Whitney high-fived me as Henry sputtered on the other end of the line. I'll be at the house in 20 minutes, he announced. No, you won't, I replied, because I'm not there, and I won't be there. If you want to discuss this, you can do it through Blaze, through your lawyer. Grace, we're still married. For now. I nodded at Blaze, who pulled out another stack of papers. Check your email in about 5 minutes. You'll find divorce papers waiting. You're destroying everything over one mistake? One mistake? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean the 6-month affair with my sister? The years of making me feel small? Or the mistake of assuming I was too boring to notice what was really going on? The office door opened and Blaze's assistant stepped in, handing him a note. He read it and smiled. Mr. Pierce, Blaze interrupted, I've just been informed that your company's stock has dropped 15% in the last hour. I suggest you focus on that rather than harassing my client. Grace. Henry's voice turned soft, pleading. Baby, please, we can work this out. I'll end things with Ella. I'll do whatever you want. That's the thing, Henry. I don't want anything from you anymore. I reached for the disconnect button. Oh, and one more thing. I bought that gallery space on Mason Street. You know, the one you said was a waste of money? Turns out I can afford it now that I'm not bankrolling your lifestyle. I ended the call as Henry was mid-protest. Within seconds, my phone lit up with messages from Ella. What are you doing? Henry's freaking out. Please don't do this to him. I blocked her number. Well, Blaze said, gathering the papers into a neat pile. That was satisfying to watch. The divorce papers will be delivered to his office within the hour. Whitney stood up, grabbing her purse. I say this calls for champagne. That new rooftop bar downtown? I checked my watch, 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. The old Grace would never drink in the middle of the day. The old Grace would be home preparing Henry's favorite dinner, hoping to smooth things over. You know what? Champagne sounds perfect. As we walked out of Blaze's office, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a message from Henry's mother, Deborah. We need to talk. There are things you should know. I showed the message to Whitney, who raised an eyebrow. Are you going to respond? I thought for a moment, then typed back, tomorrow, 10 a.m., the Mason Street Gallery. Might as well show her where her son's money really went, I said, hitting send. After all, I'm done hiding in the shadows. The Mason Street Gallery's empty space echoed with my footsteps as I walked through it, imagining where each painting would hang. The morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, creating patterns on the hardwood floors. A knock at the door interrupted my planning. Deborah stood there, looking less put together than I'd ever seen her. You bought it, she said as I let her in, her eyes taking in the space. Henry always said you'd never do it. Henry said a lot of things. I gestured to two folding chairs I'd brought. Coffee? She nodded, accepting the paper cup I offered. The company's in chaos. The board called an emergency meeting last night. I know, Blaze keeps me updated. Grace, Deborah's hands trembled slightly around her cup. I'm not here to defend him. What Henry and Ella did was unconscionable. But there are things you don't know about Henry, about why he is the way he is. A harsh laugh escaped me. Let me guess, he's actually the victim here? In some ways, yes. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos before showing me one I'd never seen. A young Henry, maybe 12, sporting a black eye. His father wasn't the man everyone thought he was. What are you saying? I'm saying that perfection, control, success, they weren't just goals for Henry, they were survival mechanisms. She swiped to another photo, this one of a broken window. My husband had very specific ideas about what made a man successful. Failure wasn't an option. I sat back processing this. That doesn't excuse what he did. No, it doesn't. But it might help you understand why the company means so much to him, why he's standing outside right now, trying to work up the courage to come in. My head snapped up. What? Deborah nodded toward the window. Sure enough, Henry stood on the sidewalk, looking lost in his rumpled suit, a far cry from his usual polished appearance. Should I let him in? I asked, not sure why I was even considering it. That's up to you, but there's something else you should know. Deborah hesitated. Ella's pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? She told Henry yesterday. That's why he's here. He's not handling it well. I walked to the window. Henry saw me and raised his hand in an uncertain wave. Against my better judgment, I went to the door and opened it. You look terrible, I said as he approached. I haven't slept. He stopped a few feet away. Grace, save it. Your mother told me about Ella. He flinched. I didn't know. I didn't know she would. Get pregnant? Funny how actions have consequences, isn't they? The company's falling apart, he said, his voice breaking. Everything my grandfather built, everything I worked for. Everything I saved, I corrected, with my money, my inheritance. I know now. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. I took you for granted. I made you feel small because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Of not being enough, of failing, of being like him. He glanced at his mother, who watched us silently. I became exactly what I feared most. A knock on the gallery window made us all turn. Ella stood there, her face streaked with tears. My sister, the one who used to braid my hair and share my secrets, now carrying my husband's child. I'm not doing this, I said, turning away. Grace, please, Ella called through the glass. I need my sister. You should have thought of that 6 months ago. I'm scared, she said, her voice muffled but clear enough. Henry won't even talk to me now. Mom and Dad are furious. I don't know what to do. I looked at Deborah, who gave me a sad smile. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who need us most. That's not fair, I whispered. No, it's not, but you're stronger than both of them combined. You always have been. I walked to the door again, my hand on the handle. If I let you in, Ella, it's not forgiveness. I don't even know what it is. She nodded frantically. I know. I can't do this alone. As I opened the door, Henry stepped forward. Grace, about the company. Stop. I held up my hand. I'm not doing this for you, either of you. Whatever happens next, it happens on my terms. What are your terms? Henry asked. I looked around the gallery, my gallery, and thought about the scared little boy in those photos, the sister who used to be my best friend, and the woman I'd become while nobody was watching. First, you both sit down and listen. Really listen. to everything I have to say, everything I've been holding back. Then maybe we can talk about what happens next. Deborah stood up, gathering her purse. I'll leave you to it. Stay, I said, surprising myself. I think we all need a witness for what comes next. The morning sun continued to paint patterns on the floor as we arranged our chairs in a circle, preparing for truths that had waited too long to be spoken. The silence in the gallery felt heavy as we sat in our makeshift circle. Ella kept wiping her eyes with her sleeve. Designer, probably another gift from Henry, while he stared at his expensive shoes. Start at the beginning, I said to Ella. I want to hear everything. She glanced at Henry before speaking. It started at your anniversary party. Remember how you were busy organizing everything? You mean when I was making sure Henry's business partners were comfortable while he networked? Henry winced. Grace, no interrupting. I cut him off. Go on, Ella. Henry looked so lonely, she continued. We started talking about you, actually, about how you'd changed since getting married. He said you used to be different, more spontaneous, more like you, I finished. She nodded miserably. One thing led to another. We started meeting for coffee just to talk. Then dinners. Then you started sleeping with my husband. I never meant to fall in love with him, Ella burst out. It just happened. Nothing just happens, Deborah interjected quietly. We make choices. I turned to Henry. Your turn. Tell me about the company, about what your father did. His jaw tightened. That's not relevant. It is if you want any chance of saving your grandfather's legacy. He stood up abruptly, pacing the empty gallery. He used to lock me in the office when deals went bad, said I needed to learn what failure felt like. His voice cracked. Sometimes for hours, days, once, Ella gasped softly. This was clearly news to her. The company was everything to him, Henry continued. Success was the only language he spoke. When you came along, Grace, you were so different, so free, until I made you just like him. You didn't make me anything, I said. I chose to become what you needed, just like I'm choosing now to become what I need. And what's that? He asked. I gestured around the gallery. This, art, creation, everything I gave up to be the perfect corporate wife. Ella shifted in her chair, one hand resting on her still flat stomach. I used to be so jealous of you, Grace. You had everything, the perfect marriage, the perfect life. Perfect? I laughed. I spent 12 years erasing myself. Do you know what I did with my inheritance? All of it went to saving Henry's company. Not because he asked. He never knew to ask. I did it because I thought that's what a good wife would do. Why didn't you tell me? Henry whispered. Would it have mattered? Would you have seen me differently, or just the money? Deborah cleared her throat. Henry, tell her what happened at the board meeting yesterday. He sank back into his chair. They want to sell the whole company, cut their losses before it gets worse. To whom? Marcus Industrial. They've been trying to buy us out for years. I knew the company. They'd approached me privately months ago, sensing the weakness in Henry's position. And I said no. I'd rather watch it burn than sell my grandfather's legacy. Your grandfather's legacy, I repeated. What about your father's legacy? The abuse? The control? Is that what you want to preserve? The question hung in the air. Ella started crying again, silently. I'm 12 weeks along, she said suddenly. The baby, it's due in spring. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Behind the perfect makeup and expensive clothes, she looked terrified, young, lost. What do you want, Ella? Not what Henry wants, not what our parents want. You, she hesitated. I want my sister back, even if I don't deserve her. And you? I asked Henry. What do you want? He met my eyes for the first time. I want to be better than my father, but I don't know how. I pulled out my phone and dialed Blaze's number, putting it on speaker. Grace? He answered. Everything okay? Those papers you were holding for me. The ones about Marcus Industrial. Can you send them over? The buyout proposal? Sure. Now? Yes. And Blaze? Include the condition we discussed about the board seat. Henry's head snapped up. What board seat? I ended the call. Marcus offered me a position on their board. Part of the deal would be keeping the company's core team intact, but with new management. You've been planning this? Ella asked. I've been preparing. There's a difference. I stood up, walking to the windows. Here's what's going to happen. The company will sell to Marcus. Henry, you'll get therapy. Real therapy, not the corporate coaching kind. Ella, you'll move in with Mom and Dad until the baby comes. And you? Henry asked. I turned back to them, feeling stronger than I had in years. I'm going to open this gallery. I'm going to paint again, and I'm going to stop being the person everyone else needs me to be. Will you ever forgive us? Ella's voice was small. I don't know, I answered honestly, but I'm willing to find out who we all are beyond this moment. That's the best I can offer right now. The morning had turned to afternoon, the sun now casting different shadows across the floor. None of us had moved, each lost in thoughts of what came next, what had to change, and who we might become in the aftermath of everything broken. You should see these therapy bills, Whitney said, dropping into my favorite armchair in the half-furnished gallery office. Henry's really going all in. I looked up from the canvas I was working on, my first painting in over a decade. How do you know about his therapy bills? Deborah told me. We get coffee now, if you can believe it. She grinned at my surprised expression. What? Your mother-in-law's actually pretty cool when she's not trying to maintain the perfect family facade. Ex-mother-in-law, I corrected, adding another stroke of blue to the canvas. Speaking of which, Whitney pulled an envelope from her bag. The final divorce papers came through today. Blaze asked me to deliver them. My hand trembled slightly as I took the envelope. Just like that, 12 years of marriage ends with a manila envelope? And a much healthier bank account, Whitney reminded me. The Marcus deal went through? Yesterday. Henry signed everything without argument. I set down my paintbrush. It's strange. He's actually keeping his therapy appointments, talking about his father, trying to what? Be better? Whitney's tone was skeptical. Maybe. Deborah says he's different in sessions, more open, raw. I walked to the window, watching people pass by on the street below. He brought me something yesterday. Oh? I went to my desk and pulled out a small, worn notebook. His childhood journal, the things his father did, Whitney. I knew it was bad, but reading it, don't you dare feel sorry for him, Whitney warned. Not exactly, but I understand more now about why he became who he became. I opened the journal to a dog-eared page. Listen to this. Dad says crying is for women and failures. I haven't cried in 47 days. He was 9 when he wrote that. Whitney's expression softened slightly. Okay, that's pretty messed up. Still doesn't excuse what he did to you. No, it doesn't. But I hesitated. Yesterday, I saw him with Ella at her doctor's appointment. Wait, what? Why were you there? She asked me to come. She was scared about some test results. I picked up my paintbrush again, needing something to do with my hands. You should have seen him, Whitney. When the heartbeat came through on the monitor, he actually cried, in public. Then he apologized for crying. And how did that make you feel? Honestly? Sad. Sad for that little boy who learned to equate emotions with weakness. Sad for my sister, who's terrified of becoming a mother while navigating all this mess. Sad for myself, for not seeing it all sooner. A knock at the gallery door interrupted us. Deborah stood there with 2 takeout bags. "I brought lunch," she said, entering. "Oh, you're painting again. It's beautiful, Grace." I looked at the canvas, an abstract piece full of blues and storms and light breaking through. "It's helping me process everything." "Henry saw his father yesterday," Deborah said, unpacking sandwiches. "For the first time since therapy started." Whitney raised an eyebrow. "How'd that go?" "About as well as you'd expect, but he stood his ground, told him everything he should have said years ago." Deborah's hands shook slightly. "I should have left that man decades ago. Maybe if I had—" "You can't think like that," I said, surprising myself by taking her hand. "We all made the choices we thought we had to make." "Speaking of choices," Whitney interjected, "have you decided about Ella's offer?" I nodded. "I'm going to help her set up the nursery, not because I've forgiven her, but because she's still my sister, and that baby is still my niece or nephew." "And Henry?" "He's doing the work, actually doing it, not just playing the part like he used to." I walked to my painting, adding a streak of golden yellow breaking through the storm clouds. "He asked me something interesting yesterday." "What?" both women asked simultaneously. "He asked if I would consider teaching an art therapy class at his treatment center. Said creating something might help others who are stuck in destructive patterns." Whitney whistled low. "That's surprisingly insightful for Henry." "I know. That's why I said yes." Deborah stood up suddenly, walking to the window. "I filed for divorce this morning." The announcement hung in the air for a moment before I found my voice. "Are you okay?" She turned back, and for the first time, I saw real strength in her smile. "I'm better than okay. I'm free. And watching you rebuild your life, Grace, it gave me the courage to finally rebuild mine." I looked around my gallery, still empty of artwork except for my single painting, but full of possibility. "We're all rebuilding, aren't we?" "Speaking of rebuilding," Whitney said, pulling out her phone, "Ella texted me. She's having a girl." "A girl," I repeated softly, turning back to my painting. I added another streak of light breaking through the clouds. "Maybe she'll grow up knowing it's okay to feel everything, to be everything." "Maybe we all will," Deborah said. The afternoon light filtered through the gallery windows, catching the wet paint on my canvas and making it gleam. Outside, the world kept moving, people rushing past unaware of the small revelations happening inside these walls. But in here, something was shifting, healing, rebuilding, not just on my canvas, but in all of us. The gallery hummed with conversation as people moved between my paintings. Opening night had drawn a larger crowd than I'd expected, and the red dots indicating sales were already appearing beside several pieces. "This is incredible," Whitney whispered, appearing at my elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. "Have you seen the guest list? Half the city's art scene is here." I took a glass, my hand steadier than I'd expected. "I keep waiting to wake up." "Well, don't wake up yet. Your sister just arrived." I turned to see Ella standing in the doorway, her 7-month pregnancy bump evident under a flowing dress. She looked uncertain, clutching an envelope. "I'll give you 2 a minute," Whitney said, squeezing my arm before disappearing into the crowd. Ella made her way over, carefully navigating between guests. "This is amazing, Grace. Your work. It's like seeing inside your soul." "Thank you for coming," I said, meaning it. "I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure you'd want me to." She held out the envelope. "But I needed to give you this." Inside was a sonogram picture with "It's a Girl" written across the top in silver ink. Below it, Ella had written, "Her middle name will be Grace if you'll let me." "Ella, I know it doesn't fix anything," she rushed on, "but I want her to know about her aunt. about strength and creativity and forgiveness, even when it's not deserved. Before I could respond, a murmur went through the crowd. Henry had arrived, looking different than I'd ever seen him, casual in jeans and a simple button-down, his therapy-mandated beard softening his usually sharp features. "Should I go?" Ella asked quietly. "No," I said. "Stay." Henry approached us, holding something behind his back. "Your work is extraordinary, Grace. It always was. I'm sorry I never said that before." He brought his hands forward, revealing a familiar wooden box, my old art supplies from college, the ones he'd convinced me to pack away. "I found this in the attic," he said. "I thought maybe you'd want it back." I opened the box, finding my old brushes, the specialty paints, the sketches I'd hidden away. "You kept these?" "I kept everything. Even when I was trying to make you smaller, some part of me knew I was wrong." He glanced at Ella, then back to me. "The therapy's helping. I'm learning to see things differently." "I heard you're speaking at support groups now," I said. He nodded. "Talking about Dad, about patterns of control. It's hard, but it feels right." A gallery assistant appeared at my elbow. "Ms. Grace, the art critic from the Tribune would like to speak with you." "Go," Ella said. "It's your night." I looked between them, my sister, my ex-husband, both broken and healing in their own ways. "Come find me later, both of you?" They nodded, and I followed the assistant to where a small group of critics and collectors had gathered around my centerpiece, a large canvas depicting a woman emerging from shadows, her face turned toward light. "The emotion in this piece is raw," the Tribune critic said. "The interplay between darkness and illumination. What inspired it?" I thought about the past year, the betrayal, the anger, the unexpected allies, the slow journey toward understanding. "It's about becoming," I said, "about choosing light even when darkness feels safer." "Remarkable," he murmured, making notes on his phone. The evening continued to unfold like a dream. Paintings sold, connections were made, and somewhere between conversations with collectors and critics, I found myself in a quiet corner with Deborah. "Henry's father showed up at my house yesterday," she said, watching her son across the room. "Wanted to talk things through." "What did you do?" "I closed the door in his face." She smiled. 20 years ago, I would have let him in, tried to keep the peace. But watching you this past year, it taught me something about standing my ground." "Look at us," I laughed softly, "all becoming different versions of ourselves." "Better versions," she corrected. Whitney appeared again, practically bouncing. "Grace, the Times reviewer just called your work a masterclass in emotional authenticity. And that big piece in the center, The Woman in Light, it just sold for double the asking price." "What? To who?" "To me," came a voice behind us. We turned to see Henry. "Not to keep," he added quickly. "For the therapy center. People need to see it, to know that change is possible." I felt tears threatening, but held them back. "Thank you." "No," he said quietly. "Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like." Across the room, Ella was talking to a young couple, one hand resting on her belly. Deborah stood straighter, free from decades of pretense. Whitney beamed with pride. And I stood in my gallery, surrounded by my art, my truth on display for everyone to see. "Grace," the assistant was back. "They're ready for your speech." I took a deep breath, looking around at my gathered family, broken, rebuilt, different, but still somehow family. "Go on," Whitney urged. "Show them who you've become." I stepped toward the center of the gallery, toward the light, ready to tell my story, not just through my paintings, but through my own voice, finally strong enough to be heard. The autumn breeze carried the sound of laughter through the gallery's open doors as I adjusted the newest painting on the wall, a small piece showing a baby's hand reaching toward light. Below it, a simple placard read, Grace Mitchell, for my niece, Emma Grace. It's perfect, Ella said from behind me, bouncing a fussy Emma against her shoulder. Though I might be biased. You're definitely biased, I teased, reaching for my niece. Come here, little one. Let's give your mama a break. Emma settled instantly in my arms, her tiny fingers wrapping around my paint-stained thumb. The gallery had become her second home, a place where our patchwork family gathered regularly, healing old wounds and creating new memories. Henry's session went well today, Ella said, sinking into a nearby chair. The art therapy program is really taking off. I know, I had to add another class. I smiled, remembering the skepticism when we'd first proposed combining art with trauma therapy. Yesterday, one of the participants finally painted his childhood home. He cried the whole time, but afterward, he looked lighter somehow. The gallery door chimed as Whitney entered, carrying coffee and her usual stack of newspapers. You made the art section again, she announced, spreading out the paper. Local Artist Pioneers Revolutionary Trauma Recovery Program. That's not why we do it, I reminded her, but couldn't help feeling proud. Speaking of doing things, Ella said hesitantly, I have news. I've enrolled in nursing school. I turned to her, surprised. Really? What brought this on? Being in the hospital with Emma, seeing those nurses, they made such a difference. And I thought, maybe it's time I made a difference too. Be someone she can be proud of. The door chimed again. This time it was Deborah, looking younger than she had in years, followed by Henry. Sorry we're late, Deborah said. The meeting with the divorce lawyers ran long, but it's done. Finally done. Henry stepped forward, taking Emma from my arms with practiced ease. Dad signed everything. No contests, no fights. How did that feel? I asked them both. Like freedom, Deborah answered immediately. Like ending a cycle, Henry added, making funny faces at Emma. Speaking of which, I have something to show you, Grace. He pulled out his phone, showing me a photo of a teenage boy's artwork, dark, angry strokes across canvas. This is Marcus from yesterday's session. His father? He's like mine was. But look at this. He swiped to another image, the same boy's artwork from today. Hints of light breaking through the darkness. He's starting to see a way out. Just like his teacher did, Whitney said pointedly. I walked to the gallery's front window, taking in the view of Mason Street. The sold signs on my paintings had become a regular sight, but it wasn't the sales that mattered most. It was what happened in between, the healing, the growth, the quiet moments of breakthrough. Grace? Ella called softly. There's something else. I met someone. He's a doctor at the hospital where I'm doing my pre-nursing volunteer work. And? I prompted, noting the blush on her cheeks. And he asked me out, but I wanted to talk to you first, because after everything, I crossed the room and took her hands. You don't need my permission to live your life, Ella. I know, but I need you to know that I understand now about respect, about boundaries, about doing things the right way. Henry cleared his throat. I've been seeing someone too. My therapist referred me to her therapist first. We're taking it very slowly, doing the work separately and together. I looked at my ex-husband, really looked at him. The arrogant executive was gone, replaced by someone more real, more human. Good, I said simply. You deserve a chance to do things right this time. Emma started fussing again, and we all instinctively moved to comfort her. Her father, her mother, her aunt, her grandmother, and honorary Aunt Whitney. A family redefined and rebuilt. I have something to show you all too, I said, leading them to my workshop in the back. On an easel sat my newest piece, a large canvas showing a group of people. Their faces turned toward each other, light emanating from their connections rather than from above. "Is that us?" Deborah asked, stepping closer. "It's called redemption," I explained, "because that's what we've all found, in our own ways." "Even me?" Henry asked quietly. "Especially you." I touched the canvas gently. "We all deserve the chance to rewrite our stories." Emma cooed suddenly, reaching toward the painting with tiny fingers, leaving a perfect handprint in wet paint. "Oh no," Ella started, but I laughed. "Leave it," I said. "It's perfect. Sometimes the most beautiful art comes from unexpected moments." We stood there together, watching the sunlight play across the canvas, across Emma's tiny handprint, a symbol of everything we'd lost, everything we'd gained, and everything we were still becoming. Not an ending, but a continuation, a story still being written with every brushstroke, every choice, every moment of grace.
I thought tonight would be perfect. That's the thing about perfect moments. They're so fragile they shatter if you look at them too closely. The restaurant's soft lighting cast everyone in their most flattering glow, including my husband of 10 years. Devin looked particularly handsome tonight, his dark hair just starting to silver at the temples, his blue eyes catching the candlelight as he raised his glass. "To us," he said. "To 10 years with the most ambitious woman I know." I smiled, clinking my glass against his. The champagne tasted expensive and crisp, exactly what you'd expect at Oriole, where the waitstaff knew us by name and never rushed us through our meals. Devin had arranged everything. The corner table overlooking the city, my favorite flowers, even the small velvet box sitting between us that I was pretending not to notice. "You're staring at it," he said, amusement playing at the corners of his mouth. "I'm not," I lied, taking another sip of champagne. "Open it, Melanie." I set down my glass and reached for the box, feeling a flutter of anticipation. 10 years of marriage, and he could still make my heart race. I lifted the lid to find a pair of diamond earrings that caught the light so brilliantly I almost gasped. "They're beautiful," I said, genuinely moved. "Thank you." Only the best for the woman who built an empire alongside me. There was something in his tone, a slight edge I couldn't quite place, but I brushed it aside, slipping the earrings on and feeling their weight against my neck. "Speaking of empires," Devin continued, his voice dropping to that intimate pitch that always made me lean in closer. "I have some news about the company." "My company." Well, our company, technically, but Meyer Consulting had been my brainchild, my late nights, my sacrificed weekends. Devin had come on later, bringing his connections and charm to what I'd already built with sweat and strategy. "What kind of news?" I asked, reaching for my water glass to ease the sudden dryness in my throat. "The board meeting yesterday. I didn't want to spoil the surprise before our anniversary." My stomach tightened. "What surprise?" "They voted to restructure the executive team." His smile remained perfectly in place. "Effective immediately, I'll be taking over as CEO." The water glass froze halfway to my lips. "That's not possible. I'm the CEO." "We're the CEO," he corrected gently, as if explaining something to a child. "The board felt we needed fresh leadership for the expansion into European markets." "The board can't make that decision without me. I hold controlling interest." Devin's smile shifted into something I'd never seen before, or perhaps had never allowed myself to see. "Not anymore. The stock transfers went through last week." "What stock transfers?" My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. His wedding ring caught the light, the gold band I'd placed there a decade ago. "Don't worry. You'll still have a role as creative director. Your vision is valuable, Melanie, just not your management style." I pulled my hand away. "This is illegal. You can't transfer my shares without my signature." "Actually, I can. Remember that power of attorney you signed when we were dealing with your father's estate? It had some rather broad language." He took a casual sip of champagne. "Your father always said you were brilliant. but careless with details. The restaurant seemed to tilt around me. My father had been dead for 3 years. Devin had been planning this for at least that long. Why? The question came out as barely more than a whisper. Business is business, he said with a small shrug. You built something remarkable, but you've hit your ceiling. The investors agree. The company needs someone who can take it global. Someone like you. The words tasted bitter. Exactly like me. His tone was almost gentle. You're too emotional, too attached to the original vision. Sometimes you need to burn things down to build them higher. I thought of all the nights I'd worked while he networked, all the clients I'd secured while he charmed. I'd believed we were a team. What a fucking joke. So this dinner, the earrings, what is this? A consolation prize? I touched one of the diamonds, suddenly wanting to rip it from my ear. It's an anniversary gift, he said, sounding genuinely confused by my reaction. I thought you'd be relieved. You've been working too hard for too long. Now you can focus on the creative side without all the pressure. The waiter approached with our appetizers, his practiced smile faltering slightly as he sensed the tension. Is everything all right with your champagne? Everything's perfect, Devin answered smoothly. My wife is just a bit overwhelmed. It's our anniversary. The waiter nodded and retreated. I stared at the food in front of me. Tuna tartare arranged in a perfect circle, garnished with microgreens and edible flowers. My stomach churned. You should eat, Devin said, lifting his fork, and try to see this as an opportunity. Change can be good for us. I looked at him, really looked at him, and wondered how I'd missed the stranger sitting across from me all these years. But I forced my lips into a smile, one I'd perfected in boardrooms full of men who underestimated me. You're right, I said, picking up my fork. I'm sure you have more surprises planned for tonight. His eyes lit up, mistaking my calm for acceptance. That's my girl. And yes, actually, I do have more surprises. This is just the beginning. I bet it is, I thought, taking a bite I couldn't taste. And so is this. I spent the rest of our anniversary dinner in a fog, nodding at appropriate intervals while my mind raced through every document I'd signed in the past 3 years. The power of attorney had been for handling my father's accounts while I was in Shanghai closing our biggest deal to date. I'd trusted Devin completely. Ready to head home? He asked, signing the check with a flourish. Home. The penthouse we'd bought together when Meyer Consulting landed its first $1 million client. Another thing he could probably take from me with the stroke of a pen. Actually, I said, sliding my chair back, I'm meeting Michaela for drinks. His eyebrows rose slightly. Tonight? It's our anniversary. Which you've commemorated by stealing my company, I replied, keeping my voice light enough that nearby diners wouldn't notice. I think we're done celebrating. A flash of annoyance crossed his face before settling back into that practiced smile. Don't be dramatic, Melanie. We can talk about your new role tomorrow. I have some ideas you'll love. I stood up, clutching my purse like a shield. I'm sure you do. Don't wait up, he called after me as I walked away. I didn't look back. Outside, the October air hit my face like a slap. I gulped it down, trying to steady myself as I texted Michaela. Emergency. Meet at our spot in 20. Her reply came instantly. Already ordering your drink. That calculating bastard, Michaela said, pushing another whiskey toward me. I never trusted him. Yes, you did, I corrected her, taking a long sip. We all did. That's his superpower. We were tucked into the back booth at O'Malley's, a dive bar we'd frequented since our 20s. The place was a stark contrast to Oriole. Sticky floors instead of white tablecloths, neon beer signs instead of candlelight. It felt more honest. What are you going to do? She asked. I stared into my glass. I don't know yet. Call a lawyer, obviously. Call Lionel, she suggested. He's ruthless. He's also expensive. So, you're rich. Am I? I laughed bitterly. I need to check what else Devin's done. For all I know, he's drained our accounts too. Michaela's eyes widened. Would he go that far? 24 hours ago, I would have said no. I finished my drink in one burning swallow. Now I have no idea what he's capable of. My phone buzzed with a text from Reagan, my executive assistant. Just heard the news, call me when you can. My stomach dropped. He's already telling people at the office. Of course he is, Michaela said. He needs to control the narrative. I thought about Reagan. Young, ambitious, loyal. She'd been with me for 3 years, watching and learning. Would she stay loyal now that power had shifted? I need to go home and get some things, I said, standing up. Before Devin changes the locks or something. Michaela grabbed my arm. Stay with me tonight. Whatever you need, get it tomorrow when he's at the office. I hesitated, then nodded. You're right. I need to think clearly first. I slept fitfully on Michaela's couch, dreaming of falling from great heights. By morning, my shock had hardened into something colder and more focused. I waited until 9:30, when I knew Devin would be at the office, my office, before going home. The penthouse was silent when I entered. I moved quickly to our bedroom, pulling out a suitcase and filling it with essentials. As I grabbed my jewelry box, I noticed the diamond earrings from last night sitting on my vanity. I left them there. In Devin's closet, I paused. His suits hung in perfect rows, color-coordinated, each one worth more than what most people made in a month. I ran my fingers along the sleeves, remembering how I used to straighten his ties before big meetings. Something caught my eye. A small safe in the back corner that hadn't been there before. My heart raced as I knelt down to examine it. Keypad entry, high-end model. When had he installed this? I tried our anniversary date 1012. Nothing, his birthday 0827, nothing. On a hunch, I tried the date Meyer Consulting was founded, 0516. The safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of documents, financial statements, contracts, emails printed and organized in folders. I pulled them out with shaking hands, scanning the contents. They detailed years of planning, conversations with board members, secret meetings with investors. One name appeared repeatedly, Ciara Kelly, our head of international development. I found a photo of them together at a hotel bar in Singapore, his hand on her waist, her lips close to his ear. The date stamp showed it was taken during a business trip 3 months ago, a trip I was supposed to attend, but canceled when my mother had her surgery. Buried beneath everything was a document outlining Project Phoenix, a complete restructuring of Meyer Consulting that eliminated nearly every initiative I'd championed. My client relationships, my mentorship program for women in business, my ethical investment guidelines, all marked for phase-out. My hands were steady as I took photos of everything with my phone. The grief I'd felt last night was burning away, replaced by something hotter and cleaner. This wasn't just business. This was personal. My phone rang. Reagan. I answered immediately. Melanie, she whispered. I don't have much time. There's an emergency board meeting at noon. Devin's announcing a merger with Apex Global. My blood went cold. Apex was our biggest competitor, known for hostile takeovers and stripping companies for parts. He can't do that without, I started. He has the votes, she interrupted. Ciara's been working the board for months. I've been copying files for you, but I think they're watching me. What should I do? I looked down at the evidence in my hands. Keep your head down. Act normal. I'll contact you when it's safe. As I hung up, my gaze fell on a framed photo of Devin and me from our wedding day. We looked so happy, so certain of our future together. I picked it up and hurled it against the wall, glass shattering across the hardwood floor. Enough, I said to the empty room. This ends now. I needed someone who wouldn't flinch at what I was about to do, someone who understood that in business, sometimes you had to be the predator to avoid becoming prey. I needed Nora. Finding her wasn't difficult. Nora Walker kept to her routines even in retirement. Every Wednesday morning, she took her coffee at the same corner table at Evergreen Cafe, reading financial papers and terrorizing young entrepreneurs who dared approach her for advice. When I walked in, her eyes flicked up from her newspaper, narrowed briefly, then returned to the article she was reading. I ordered a black coffee and slid into the seat across from her, without waiting for an invitation. You look like shit, she said without looking up. Good morning to you too. She folded her paper precisely and set it aside. Nora had been my first boss, my mentor, and occasionally my harshest critic. At 55, she'd retired from running one of the largest investment firms in the city, but her reputation still made grown men nervous in boardrooms. "I assume this isn't a social call," she said, studying me over her reading glasses. I slid my phone across the table, open to the photos I'd taken of Devon's documents. "I need your help." She scrolled through them methodically, her expression unchanging. When she finished, she pushed the phone back to me and took a long sip of her coffee. "You married a snake," she said finally. "I know that now. I told you 10 years ago." I gripped my coffee cup tighter. "You told me he was ambitious." "I told you he was the kind of ambitious that doesn't care who gets hurt." She leaned forward. "But that's not important now. What matters is what you're going to do about it." "I want to fight back, take back my company." "And your dignity?" she asked pointedly. I flinched. "That too." Nora nodded slowly. "You'll need a lawyer, not one of those corporate yes-men your firm keeps on retainer." I was thinking of Lionel Weaver. A rare smile crossed her face. "Good. He's a shark. Call him today." She paused, considering. "But legal action takes time. What's your immediate plan?" I hesitated. I'd been so consumed by the betrayal that I hadn't thought beyond exposing Devon. "I need to stop the merger with Apex. If that goes through, there won't be anything left of my company to save." "Then you need leverage," Nora said simply. "Something Apex wants more than they want Devon." My mind raced through possibilities. "Our Asian market partnerships. Apex has been trying to break into Shanghai for years." "And who controls those relationships?" "I do, personally." A small flame of hope flickered in my chest. "The contracts are with me, not the company." Nora's eyes gleamed with approval. "Now you're thinking like a businesswoman instead of a wounded wife." The distinction stung, but she was right. I needed to separate the personal betrayal from the business problem. "There's something else," I said, lowering my voice. "I found evidence that Devon's been working with Sierra Kelly to undermine me. They've been close." "Sleeping together?" Nora asked bluntly. I nodded, the admission making my throat tight. "Use it if you need to," she said without sympathy. "But remember, exposing their affair might satisfy your pride, but it won't get your company back." As I left the cafe, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Lionel. Nora said you need help. My office, 2 p.m. Lionel Weaver's office was nothing like I expected. Instead of gleaming glass and chrome, it was all worn leather and dark wood, like stepping into an old detective novel. The man himself matched the decor. Rumpled suit, perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, eyes that missed nothing. "So," he said after I'd laid out my situation, "your husband stole your company using a power of attorney you signed. He's planning to sell it to your biggest competitor, and he's sleeping with one of your executives." That about covers it. He leaned back in his chair. "And you want it all back?" "Yes." "Why?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean, why?" "It's my company." "Companies get bought and sold every day," he said, watching me carefully. "You could take what's left of your money, start something new. Why fight this battle?" I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it again. The truth was complicated. Yes, I wanted my company back, but this wasn't just about business. "Because he thinks I'll just accept it," I said finally. "Roll over and play the supportive ex-wife while he dismantles everything I built." My voice cracked slightly. He's counting on me being too embarrassed, too hurt to fight back. Lionel nodded slowly. "That's better. Now we're getting somewhere." "Can you help me?" "Maybe." He pulled out a legal pad. "The power of attorney is our biggest hurdle. Do you have a copy?" I shook my head. It was 3 years ago when my father died. "We'll need to see exactly what you signed. In the meantime, we need to delay that merger." He scribbled something down. "When's the vote?" "Tomorrow at noon." He looked up sharply. "That's not much time." "I know. Do you have any allies on the board?" I thought about it. "Maybe 1 or 2, but Devon's been working them for months." "And what about this Reagan person, the assistant who called you?" She's loyal to me, but she's young, scared. Lionel tapped his pen against the pad. Call her. Tell her to send any documents about the merger to this secure email. He wrote it down and slid it across to me. And Melanie? Be careful. Corporate espionage is still a crime, even when it's your own company. As I stood to leave, he added, One more thing. Where are you staying? With a friend. Good. Don't go home again, not until this is over. I nodded, but as I reached the door, a thought stopped me. Lionel, what if we can't stop this? What if I've already lost? He studied me for a long moment. Then we make sure Devin loses more. The words settled over me like a cold blanket. I'd come seeking justice, but what Lionel was offering sounded more like revenge. The frightening part wasn't that I was considering it. It was how right it felt. Call your assistant, he said quietly. We need those documents. I pulled out my phone, my fingers already dialing Reagan's number. Reagan's voice was barely above a whisper when she answered. I can't talk long. They've called an all-hands meeting in 10 minutes. I need the merger documents, I said, pacing outside Lionel's office. Everything you can find. Can you access Devin's email? No, but she hesitated. I have something better. Ciara left her laptop open when she went to lunch. I forwarded some files to my personal email. My heart raced. Reagan, that's risky, I know. But you do the same for me. The confidence in her voice surprised me. I'm sending them now. There's something else you should know. Devin's telling everyone you had a breakdown, that you're taking a mental health sabbatical. The words hit like a physical blow. A breakdown? He showed up this morning with this whole concerned husband act. Said you've been under too much pressure, that you'd been making erratic decisions. Her voice dropped even lower. People are buying it, Melanie. Even people who've worked with you for years. Of course they were. Devin had always been the charming one, the one who remembered birthdays and brought coffee to early meetings. I was the demanding one, the perfectionist who pushed for excellence. It wouldn't be hard to reframe my drive as instability. Send everything you can, I said. And Reagan, be careful. Always am. She paused. One more thing. There's a pre-merger celebration tonight at the loft. Everyone's going to be there. Board members, Apex executives. Might be your last chance to talk to people before tomorrow's vote. After we hung up, I stood motionless, processing. Devin wasn't just taking my company. He was taking my reputation, my credibility, making sure that even if I fought back, no one would listen. It's worse than we thought, Lionel said, scanning through the documents Reagan had sent. We'd been holed up in his office for hours, piecing together Devin's plan. The merger isn't just a merger. Apex is going to absorb Meyer Consulting completely, then spin off the parts they don't want. Which parts? I asked, though I already knew. The foundation work, the mentorship programs, the ethical investment division. He looked up at me. Everything you cared about most. I stared at the wall behind him, where framed newspaper clippings chronicled his biggest legal victories. Would my downfall end up there someday? What about the power of attorney? I asked. He shook his head. It's ironclad. Devin had it drafted specifically to give him control over all your business interests, not just your father's estate. You signed it. Without reading it carefully enough, I admitted. We've all made that mistake. His tone was gentler than I'd heard before. The question is, what do we do now? I checked my watch. 6:30. The celebration would be starting soon. I'm going to that party, I said. Lionel frowned. That's not a good idea. You'll be walking into hostile territory. Exactly. They won't expect it. I stood up, smoothing down my wrinkled blouse. I need to change first. Melanie, he said, his voice serious. What's your plan here? I met his gaze steadily. To remind them who built Meyer Consulting, and to make sure they know exactly what they're throwing away. Michaela stared at me like I'd lost my mind. You want to crash a party where your cheating husband and his mistress are celebrating stealing your company? Yes. I rummaged through her closet, looking for something to wear. My own clothes were still at the penthouse. I need to borrow a dress. This is insane, she said, but she was already pulling out options. What if Devin makes a scene? He won't, I said with certainty. Public scenes aren't his style. He'll play the concerned husband, try to hustle me out quietly. She handed me a black dress with a neckline that dipped just low enough to be noticeable without being inappropriate. And what will you do? I'll talk to the board members, plant seeds of doubt about the merger. With what leverage? You said yourself that Devon has the votes locked up. I slipped into the dress and turned to the mirror. Without my usual polished appearance, with shadows under my eyes and my hair hastily styled, I looked different, vulnerable, human. Maybe that's my leverage, I murmured. Michaela appeared behind me in the reflection. What do you mean? Devon's painting me as unstable, right? The crazy wife who couldn't handle the pressure? I turned to face her. What if I lean into that? Just enough to make people uncomfortable, to make them wonder what else he might be lying about. That's risky, she said slowly. You've spent your whole career being taken seriously, and now I have nothing to lose. I slipped on the heels she'd laid out. Are you coming with me? She grabbed her purse without hesitation. Someone has to bail you out when this goes sideways. The loft was buzzing with conversation when we arrived, the city's skyline providing a glittering backdrop through floor-to-ceiling windows. I spotted Devon immediately, holding court near the bar, Kira at his side wearing a dress I recognized from my own closet. Conversation stuttered as people noticed me. A waiter offered champagne. I took a glass but didn't drink. Melanie, came a voice to my right. Marcus, one of the board members. We didn't expect to see you here. Clearly, I said, smiling tightly. I heard there was a celebration. Of course I wouldn't miss it. His eyes darted nervously toward Devon, who had now spotted me. Devon mentioned you were taking some time off. Did he? I kept my voice light. How thoughtful of him to be concerned. But I'm feeling much better now. Clear-headed enough to wonder why my board is rushing into a merger without proper due diligence. Marcus's expression shifted from discomfort to wariness. The documentation is quite thorough. Is it? Have you seen the projections for what happens to our Asian partnerships after the merger? Because I have. Before he could respond, Devon appeared at his side, his smile fixed in place. Melanie, this is a surprise. Is it? I met his gaze directly. I thought you'd be expecting me. After all, we're still partners, aren't we? In business and in life? The challenge hung between us. Around us, conversations had hushed as people strained to listen. Of course, he said smoothly. Though I'm concerned you're pushing yourself too hard. Why don't we talk privately? As he reached for my arm, I stepped back, bumping into someone. My champagne splashed across the front of Kiara's, my, dress. Oh, I said, not bothering to sound sincere. How clumsy of me. Kiara's mouth opened in shock as the champagne darkened the fabric of her dress. My dress. For a moment, the room went completely silent. I think you've had enough, Devon said quietly, his fingers closing around my upper arm. To everyone watching, he probably looked like a concerned husband. Only I could feel how his nails dug into my skin. You're right, I replied, voice carrying just enough to be heard by those nearest us. I've had enough of a lot of things. His grip tightened. Let's get you home. I'm not going anywhere with you. I pulled away, turning to face the small crowd that had gathered. I apologize for the interruption, everyone. Please, enjoy celebrating the dismantling of everything I've built over the last decade. Marcus stepped forward, discomfort evident on his face. Melanie, perhaps this isn't the best venue. For what? The truth? I locked eyes with him. Tell me, Marcus, did Devon show you the real projections for what happens to our Asian partnerships after the merger? Or just the fantasy numbers Apex provided? A flash of uncertainty crossed his face. Good. A seed planted. This is exactly what I was concerned about, Devon said, addressing the room with practiced sympathy. Melanie's been under tremendous strain, making accusations, seeing conspiracies. Like the conspiracy of you sleeping with Kiara while planning to steal my company? The words came out before I could stop them. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Kiara's face flushed deep red as she backed away, still dabbing at her ruined dress. Devon's expression hardened for just an instant before smoothing into concern again. This is what I mean, these paranoid delusions. I have the hotel receipts, Devon. A bluff, but a calculated one. Singapore, 3 months ago. Something flashed in his eyes. Fear, maybe, or just surprise that I knew. It was enough to make several board members exchange glances. I think we should continue this conversation privately, he said, voice tight. I agree, came a new voice. I turned to see Nora Walker cutting through the crowd like an icebreaker through thin ice. In fact, I insist on it. Relief washed over me. I hadn't expected her to come. Nora, Devon said, recovering quickly. I didn't realize you were invited. I wasn't, she replied coolly. But when I heard Melanie was making an appearance, I thought she might need backup. She turned to the crowd. For those who don't know me, I'm Nora Walker. I mentored Melanie when she was building Meyer Consulting from nothing but ambition and brilliance. Her gaze swept the room, lingering on board members. And I'm very interested in why this merger is being rushed through without standard due diligence. Almost as if someone's afraid of what might be discovered with proper scrutiny. The atmosphere shifted perceptibly. Nora's reputation carried weight that even Devon couldn't easily dismiss. We should go, Michaela whispered in my ear. You've made your point. She was right. I'd created exactly the disruption I'd intended. As Nora engaged several board members in conversation, Michaela and I slipped toward the exit. Devon caught up to us at the elevator. That was quite a performance, he said, voice low and dangerous. But it changes nothing. The vote happens tomorrow, and I have the numbers. I met his gaze steadily. We'll see. You're only hurting yourself, Melanie. Walk away now, take the settlement I'm prepared to offer, and you can still have a career somewhere else. The elevator doors opened. As I stepped inside, I turned back to him. You know what your mistake was, Devon? You taught me too well. Never show mercy in business. His face hardened as the doors closed between us. That was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, Michaela said as we rode down to the lobby. Maybe both. I leaned against the elevator wall, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation was fading, leaving me shaky. Did you see their faces? I asked. The board members, they're having doubts. Doubts aren't enough to change votes, she pointed out, not when contracts are already drawn up. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, where a familiar figure waited. Reagan, her expression tense. What are you doing here? I asked, alarmed. If Devon sees you... I had to risk it, she said, pulling me aside. They fired me an hour ago, said I was accessing files I shouldn't have. My stomach dropped. Reagan, I'm so sorry. Don't be. I knew the risk. She glanced around nervously. But there's something you need to know. The Apex CEO, Thomas, he's upstairs right now having second thoughts about the merger. What? Why? Your Asian partners. When they heard about the merger, 3 of them called to say they'd pull out if Apex takes over. Apparently, they had some bad history with Apex in the past. My mind raced. The partnerships I'd cultivated personally over years of relationship building. Of course they'd be loyal to me, not the company structure. This changes everything, I said. If Apex is getting cold feet... Devon's scrambling to save the deal, Reagan continued. He's offering Thomas something else to sweeten the pot. What? She hesitated. Your client list, all your personal connections. He's promising Thomas that he can deliver them regardless of the partnerships. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. Those relationships weren't just business assets. They were people who trusted me, who'd built their companies alongside mine. He can't deliver what he doesn't have, I said, a new resolve hardening within me. Those relationships are with me, not Meyer Consulting. Michaela touched my arm. What are you thinking? I pulled out my phone. I need to make some calls, tonight. To who? Everyone. I scrolled through my contacts. Every client, every partner, every connection I've made in the last decade. I'm going to burn it all down before I let Devon sell it off. Reagan's eyes widened. That's nuclear. You'd be destroying your own company. No, I said, the path suddenly clear before me. I'd be saving what matters. The people, the relationships, the trust. Devin can have the empty shell. As we walked out into the night, I felt lighter than I had in days. For the first time since this began, I wasn't just reacting to Devin's moves. I was making my own. I need a quiet place to work, I said. This is going to be a long night. By 4 a.m, my throat was raw and my ear burned from being pressed against my phone for hours. I'd spoken to clients in 3 time zones, partners across 2 continents, and every industry connection who would take my call at an ungodly hour. That's the last one, I said, setting my phone down on Michaela's kitchen table. Reagan had fallen asleep on the couch hours ago, but Michaela had stayed up, making coffee, and occasionally squeezing my shoulder when a particularly difficult call ended. "How many agreed?" she asked, sliding a fresh mug toward me. 17 major clients, 9 partners. I rubbed my eyes. All willing to follow me if I start something new. That's incredible, Mel. It's not enough. I stared into the coffee. Not to stop the merger, but it's enough to make it a hollow victory for Devin and Apex. Michaela sat across from me. So what's the next step? Sleep, hopefully. I attempted a smile. Then I meet with Lionel at 8 to go over our legal options. You should at least try to rest, she said, glancing at her watch. You've got less than 3 hours. I nodded, though I knew sleep would be impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Devin's face. Not angry, but disappointed, like I was a misbehaving child. That patronizing look he'd perfected over the years, the one that had always made me second-guess myself. What if I'm making a mistake? I asked quietly. Burning everything down like this? Michaela studied me for a long moment. Do you remember what you said when you started Meyer Consulting? When everyone told you the market was too crowded, the timing was wrong? I smiled faintly. That sometimes you have to tear down the old to build something better. Exactly. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Get some rest. The tearing down part is almost over. Tomorrow you start rebuilding. Lionel's office looked different in the harsh morning light. Less film noir, more pragmatic workspace. Or maybe it was just my exhaustion altering my perception. You look like you haven't slept, he said as I slumped into the chair across from his desk. Astute observation. Is that why they pay you the big bucks? He smiled slightly. That, and my charming personality. He pushed a folder toward me. I've been doing some digging into Apex. Their financials aren't as solid as they want people to believe. I flipped through the documents, trying to focus my bleary eyes. How does this help us? It doesn't stop the merger, he admitted. But it gives us leverage for your exit package. If Apex is overextending to make this acquisition, they'll want to avoid any additional complications. Like a messy public lawsuit from the founder? Exactly. He leaned forward. Melanie, I need to ask you something important. What do you want out of this? I blinked at him. What do you mean? I mean, what's your end game? Do you want money, revenge, your company back? Because each of those requires a different strategy. The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on stopping Devin that I hadn't clearly defined what victory would look like. I paused, really thinking about it. I want to protect what I built, the relationships, the culture, the mission, and I want Devin to face consequences for what he did. Lionel nodded slowly. Then we need to be smarter than just burning it all down. We need to be strategic. My phone buzzed with a text from Reagan. Emergency. Board meeting moved up to 10 a.m. Devin knows what you're doing. Shit, I muttered, showing Lionel the message. We're running out of time. He checked his watch. It's 8:30 now. Not much time to prepare. Prepare for what? We can't stop the vote. No, he agreed. But you can be there when it happens. The Meyer Consulting boardroom fell silent when I walked in at 9:55. 8 board members sat around the polished table, with Devin at the head. His eyes widened briefly before narrowing. Melanie, he said, recovering quickly. This is a closed meeting. I'm still a shareholder, I replied, taking the empty seat at the opposite end of the table. I have a right to be here. Marcus cleared his throat uncomfortably. Given the circumstances, The circumstances, I interrupted, are that you're about to vote on selling this company to Apex Global without full information. Devon's jaw tightened. We've provided all relevant documentation, except for the fact that 17 of our major clients have indicated they'll terminate their contracts if this merger goes through. I placed a folder on the table. Or that 9 of our international partners have expressed the same intention. Murmurs rippled around the table. Devon's face flushed with anger. This is a desperate attempt to disrupt a beneficial business transaction, he said. Melanie has been contacting clients directly, making misleading statements. I told them the truth, I countered. That the company they trusted is being gutted and sold for parts. That the ethical standards they valued will be abandoned under Apex's management. This is exactly the kind of emotional, irrational behavior I was concerned about, Devon said to the board, making wild accusations, threatening the company's relationships. Actually, came a voice from the doorway, her accusations seem quite rational to me. Thomas Reed, CEO of Apex Global, stood there with 2 men I recognized as his chief counsel and CFO. Thomas, Devon said, standing quickly, we weren't expecting you until the signing. Clearly. Thomas's gaze moved from Devon to me. Ms. Meyer, I received some interesting calls last night, several from your Asian partners with whom we've had challenging relations in the past, and one from Nora Walker, who suggested I might want to reconsider this merger. My heart raced. Nora had called Thomas directly? Whatever concerns you have, Devon said smoothly, I'm sure we can address them after the vote. Thomas shook his head. I don't think so. Apex is withdrawing our offer, effective immediately. The boardroom erupted in shocked exclamations. Devon's face went from red to white in seconds. You can't do that, he sputtered. The contracts haven't been signed, Thomas finished for him. And won't be. Not when half the value we were purchasing appears to be walking out the door with your wife. He nodded respectfully in my direction. Good day, everyone. As Thomas and his team left, all eyes turned to Devon. For the first time since I'd known him, he seemed completely at a loss. Well, I said into the silence, unable to keep a slight tremor from my voice. I believe we need a new agenda for today's meeting. The boardroom hummed with tension as Devon struggled to regain control. This is merely a setback, he said, shuffling papers with trembling hands. There are other potential buyers. Who will all hear the same concerns from our clients and partners? I interjected. Face it, Devon, the company isn't worth what you promised without me. Marcus cleared his throat. Perhaps we should adjourn to consider our options. No, I said firmly. We need to address this now. I looked around the table at the board members, people I'd known for years, who'd watched me build this company from nothing. Devon has been CEO for exactly 2 days, and he's already driven away our biggest potential acquisition and put our client relationships at risk. That's not fair, Devon snapped. You sabotaged the deal deliberately. I told our clients the truth, something you should have done from the beginning. I leaned forward. I'd like to propose a vote of no confidence in the current CEO. The room went still. Devon's laugh was sharp and brittle. You can't be serious. You have no authority to call such a vote. Actually, she does, said board member Elise, speaking for the first time. She'd been quiet throughout the chaos, observing with calculating eyes. As a shareholder, Melanie has the right to propose a vote at any board meeting. A vote that will fail, Devon said confidently. I control the majority of shares. Do you? I pulled out my phone and opened an email. Because I just received confirmation from my attorney that your power of attorney has been temporarily suspended pending investigation of potential fraud and misrepresentation. Devon's face went slack. That's impossible. Not when Nora Walker calls in favors from a judge she's known for 30 years. I smiled thinly. The suspension is only temporary, but it's enough for today's purposes. I could see Devon calculating rapidly, his eyes darting from face to face around the table, assessing who might still be loyal to him. Even without my shares, you don't have the votes, he said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. Let's find out. I looked at Marcus. As board chair, would you please call the vote? Marcus hesitated, glancing between Devon and me. I could see the calculation in his eyes, which side to choose, which horse to back. Finally, he nodded. I call for a vote of no confidence in Devin Meyer as CEO of Meyer Consulting. He looked around the table. Those in favor? Elise's hand went up immediately. Then another board member, then another. I held my breath as the count reached 4, a tie with those still loyal to Devin. All eyes turned to Marcus, whose hand remained on the table. The deciding vote. Marcus, Devin said, his voice low and persuasive, think about what you're doing. Everything we've discussed for the future of this company. I am thinking about the future, Marcus replied quietly. He raised his hand. In favor. The air left Devin's lungs in an audible rush. This is a mistake, he said, looking around the table. A terrible mistake that you'll all regret. The vote carries, Marcus announced, ignoring him. Devin Meyer is removed as CEO, effective immediately. He turned to me. The board will need to appoint an interim CEO while we conduct a proper search. I'd like to nominate Melanie Meyer to return to her position, Elise said promptly. My heart skipped. I hadn't expected this. Had been prepared to walk away, start something new. But looking around at the boardroom, at the company I'd built, I felt a surge of possessiveness so strong it nearly took my breath away. Second, said another board member. Marcus nodded. Those in favor? This time all hands went up except Devin's remaining loyalists. It was enough. Congratulations, Melanie, Marcus said. Welcome back. Devin stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This isn't over, he said, voice tight with fury. You think you've won, but you've just declared war. I met his gaze steadily. No, Devin. The war is over. You lost. As he stormed toward the door, I called after him. One more thing. He paused but didn't turn. I want my dress back. The black Valentino that Chiara was wearing last night. Have it dry cleaned and sent to my office. A muscle twitched in his jaw as he walked out without another word. The room exhaled collectively. Marcus turned to me. What now? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settling back onto my shoulders. It felt right. It felt like coming home. Now we rebuild, I said, starting with calling Thomas Reed to apologize for the confusion and see if Apex might be interested in a strategic partnership instead of an acquisition. As the board members nodded approvingly, I felt a strange sense of gratitude toward Devin. In trying to destroy me, he'd forced me to fight for what mattered, and in the process, discover just how strong I really was. If you'll excuse me, I said, standing up, I need to make some calls. We have clients and partners to reassure. I walked out of the boardroom with my head high, past the desk where Reagan had sat, past the corner office that had briefly been Devin's, to the large glass-walled space that had always been mine. My name was still on the door. Inside, I ran my fingers along the edge of my desk, reacquainting myself with its smooth surface. Through the glass walls, I could see employees watching me, whispering to each other. News traveled fast. I picked up the phone and dialed Michaela first. It's done, I said when she answered. I'm back. Never doubted you for a second, she replied, but I could hear the relief in her voice. As I hung up, I noticed a small velvet box on my desk, the diamond earrings Devin had given me on our anniversary. There was no note, no explanation for how they'd gotten there. I opened the box, looking at the sparkling stones that had once seemed so beautiful. Now they just looked cold and hard, like Devin's eyes when his mask had finally slipped. I closed the box and dropped it into my desk drawer. Some gifts were too expensive, no matter how they sparkled. The divorce papers arrived on my desk exactly 1 week after the boardroom showdown. I signed them without hesitation, a quick scrawl that ended 10 years of marriage in less time than it takes to approve an expense report. The irony wasn't lost on me. Are you sure you don't want to negotiate for more? Lionel asked as I handed the papers back to him. He's offering a clean split just to avoid publicity, but we could push for... I don't want anything from him, I said. Just my freedom and my company. Lionel nodded, tucking the papers into his briefcase. For what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice. Clean breaks heal faster. After he left, I stood at my office window, watching the city buzz below. The past week had been a blur of client meetings, staff reassurances, and damage control. I'd barely had time to process what had happened, let alone how I felt about it. My intercom buzzed. "Melanie, Reagan's here to see you." I smiled at the sound of my new assistant's voice. "Send her in." Reagan entered, looking more polished than I'd ever seen her, tailored blazer, confident stride. She'd accepted my offer to return with one condition, a promotion to project manager. "The partnership agreement with Apex is ready for your review," she said, placing a folder on my desk. "Thomas wants to move forward as soon as possible." "Thank you." I gestured to the chair across from me. "Sit for a minute." She sat, watching me with curious eyes. "Everything okay?" "I just signed my divorce papers." "Oh." Her expression softened. "How does it feel?" I considered the question. "Like taking off shoes that never quite fit right. Relief, mostly." She nodded, understanding. "I have something for you, actually. I wasn't sure when to give it to you, but maybe now is the right time." She pulled a flash drive from her pocket and placed it on my desk. "What's this?" "Everything Devin didn't want you to see." Her eyes met mine steadily. "I've been making copies of his files for months." I stared at her, stunned. "Months? Before any of this happened?" She nodded. "I noticed things changing last fall. The private meetings, the calls he'd take in the stairwell, how he started excluding you from client conversations." She shrugged. "It didn't feel right." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Would you have believed me?" she asked simply. "You trusted him." The truth of it stung. I wouldn't have believed her, would have defended Devin, maybe even fired Reagan for disloyalty. "Thank you," I said, picking up the flash drive, "for seeing what I couldn't." After she left, I plugged it in, not sure what to expect. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Emails dating back 18 months, detailing Devin's plan to push me out, conversations with board members, carefully cultivating their support, financial projections doctored to make my initiatives look less successful than they were, and there, in a folder labeled Contingencies, a document outlining exactly how he'd use my father's death against me. He'd planned it all while holding me as I cried, while promising to handle the details so I could grieve. My hands shook as I closed the files. I'd thought I understood the depth of his betrayal. I hadn't even scratched the surface. The penthouse felt cavernous as I packed the last of my things. I'd decided to sell it. Too many memories. Too much Devin in every corner. Michaela had offered her guest room until I found a new place, but I'd booked a hotel instead. I needed neutral ground, space to think. As I zipped my suitcase, the front door opened. I froze, listening to familiar footsteps in the entryway. Devin appeared in the bedroom doorway, stopping short when he saw me. He looked thinner, the confident gleam in his eyes dimmed. "I thought you'd be at the office," he said. "Clearly." I continued packing, refusing to let his presence disrupt my rhythm. "I'm almost done. The place is yours until it sells." He watched me for a moment. "I heard about the Apex partnership. Clever move." It made business sense. It always does with you. There was something in his voice, not quite bitterness, not quite admiration. "That's what I miscalculated, you know. I thought you'd be too emotional to fight back effectively." I looked up at him. "That was always your blind spot, Devin. Thinking emotion makes people weak. Doesn't it?" "No, it makes us human." I zipped my toiletry bag. My emotions didn't cloud my judgment, they clarified it. He moved further into the room, stopping at the dresser where a single framed photo remained, us on our wedding day. He picked it up, studying it. "We could have been extraordinary together," he said quietly. "We were," I replied, "until you decided extraordinary wasn't enough." He set the photo down, turning to face me. "What happens now?" "Now?" I closed my suitcase with finality. "Now I rebuild what you tried to destroy, and you—" I shrugged. "You live with what you've done." As I moved to leave, he stepped aside, but said, "They're already calling it a comeback story, you know. The business journals, the blogs. Melanie Meyer's triumphant return. They're painting you as the victim who fought back. I paused at the doorway. Is that what bothers you most? That I'm getting the sympathetic narrative? What bothers me is that you're letting them define you by your relationship to me. The wife who was betrayed. The woman who took back what her husband stole. His eyes met mine. You're more than that, Melanie. You always were. The words hit with unexpected force. Even now he could see parts of me others missed. You're right, I said. I am more than that, and I always was. I picked up my suitcase. That's why you lost. I walked out without looking back, the weight of the past 10 years lifting with each step. In the elevator, I pulled out my phone and called Nora. It's done, I said when she answered. I'm officially divorced and homeless. Perfect timing, she replied. I've been thinking about our conversation last week. The foundation you want to start for women entrepreneurs? I'd like to be your first investor. I smiled, stepping out into the lobby. I was hoping you'd say that. One condition, she added. We name it something other than the Meyer Foundation. New beginnings deserve new names. Outside, the city stretched before me, full of possibilities I hadn't let myself see before. Buildings I'd walked past 1,000 times suddenly looked different. Not landmarks in a familiar landscape, but potential spaces for whatever I decided to build next. I like the sound of that, I said, hailing a taxi. New beginnings, new names. As the taxi pulled away from the curb, I didn't look back at the building where I'd lived with Devin. There was nothing there I needed anymore. Some people spend their whole lives becoming who they're meant to be. I'd done it in a week.
I can't believe you're still defending him after everything he's done. My mother's voice cut through the dining room like a knife, making the expensive china on the table rattle. I gripped my fork tighter, refusing to let her see how much her words stung. I'm Tegan, and this is the story of how I chose love over family expectations, and somehow ended up winning at both. Mum, Flynn's business setback wasn't his fault. The market crashed and... I started, but Claire's snort from across the table cut me off. A setback? Is that what we're calling 300,000 in debt now? My sister twirled her wineglass, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the crystal. God, Tegan, you used to be the smart one. I pushed my untouched roast beef around the plate, wondering for the 100th time why I'd agreed to another Friday night family dinner. The chandelier light caught my wedding ring, and I remembered exactly why. Because Flynn had insisted I shouldn't lose my family over his problems. I made my choice, I said firmly. I'm using my inheritance to clear Flynn's debt, and we're starting fresh. Dad cleared his throat. Honey, that money was meant for your future, your mother and I. This is my future, Dad. Flynn and I have a plan. Oh, like his last brilliant plan. Mum's laugh was bitter. The one that left him bankrupt? The worst part was I could see Aunt Annalise, usually my strongest ally, biting her lip uncertainly. Even she thought I was making a mistake. Flynn's meeting with investors next week, I said, straightening my spine. He's got a new concept that... Of course he does. Claire rolled her eyes. There's always another get-rich-quick scheme with Flynn, isn't there? I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I need some air. Nobody tried to stop me as I headed for the back porch. The summer evening was warm, but I shivered anyway. Through the kitchen window, I could hear their voices, probably not realizing how well sound carried out here. She's throwing her life away, Claire's voice drifted out. Imagine marrying a failure and then doubling down on it. I pressed my hands against the porch railing until my knuckles turned white. They didn't know Flynn like I did. They hadn't seen him working until 3 a.m., hadn't witnessed his brilliant mind at work, hadn't felt the depth of his determination to make things right. The screen door creaked, and Aunt Annalise stepped out. They mean well, you know. Do they? I turned to face her. Because it feels like they're enjoying this. She sighed, moving to stand beside me. Your mother's scared. She watched her own mother lose everything to a man with big dreams and empty pockets. Flynn isn't like that. I pulled out my phone, showing her the business plan we'd spent months perfecting. Look at these projections, the market research. This isn't some pipe dream, Annalise. She studied the screen, her expression softening. You really believe in him, don't you? With everything I have. I took my phone back, clutching it like a lifeline. And I'm not just blindly following him. I've been part of every decision, every strategy session. This is our plan, not just his. The door opened again and Mum stepped out. Dinner's getting cold. I think I'm done for tonight, I said, gathering my purse from the porch swing. Flynn's waiting at home. Of course he is, Mum muttered, probably planning how to spend the rest of your inheritance. Something in me snapped. You know what, Mum? 10 years from now, when Flynn and I have built something amazing, I want you to remember this moment. Remember how you all sat here and judged us, wrote us off, treated us like we were crazy. Tegan, Annalise started, but I was already heading for my car. As I pulled out of the driveway, my phone buzzed with a text from Flynn. How'd it go? I could picture him in our small home office, surrounded by business plans and market research. Probably hadn't even eaten dinner yet. Despite everything, a smile tugged at my lips. About as well as expected, I typed back. But it doesn't matter. Are you still up for that meeting with Bruce tomorrow? Already prepped the presentation? We're going to knock their socks off. Looking at his message, I felt the same certainty I'd felt 6 months ago when I'd first offered to help clear his debt. My family might think I was throwing my life away, but I knew better. Sometimes the biggest risks led to the greatest rewards. I turned up the radio, drowning out the echoes of their criticism. Let them talk. Flynn and I had work to do, and I couldn't wait to prove them all wrong. 6 months earlier, I sat at our kitchen table surrounded by bills, my laptop's calculator app mocking me with its endless columns of red numbers. The inheritance money sat untouched in my account, a safety net I'd sworn never to touch. Until now. You don't have to do this, Flynn said, placing a cup of coffee beside me. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, matching the ones I'd seen in the mirror that morning. We're married. Your debt is my debt. I pulled up our joint spreadsheet, the one we'd been using to track every penny. If we're smart about this, we can clear everything and still have enough seed money for the business. Flynn dropped into the chair across from me, running his hands through his dishevelled hair. I never meant to drag you into this mess. The market crash, the investors pulling out. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I know. I reached across the table, squeezing his hand. But it did, and now we deal with it. Together. The next few weeks became a blur of extreme budgeting and extra shifts at my consulting job. I picked up weekend work, Flynn sold his beloved vintage car collection, and we moved to a smaller apartment. Every dollar saved went straight to debt repayment. You're insane, Bruce said one evening, watching me clip coupons at our new, much smaller dining table. Both of you, working yourselves to death over debt you could have walked away from through bankruptcy. Flynn looked up from his laptop. That's not who we are. Besides, I added, bankruptcy would have killed any chance of getting investors for the new business. Bruce leaned forward, his expression shifting from sceptical to intrigued. About that, I might have something for you. Flynn's fingers stopped typing. What kind of something? Remember that sustainable packaging concept you wouldn't shut up about last year? Bruce pulled out his phone, scrolling through emails. Well, I showed those preliminary designs to some people, important people. My heart started racing as Bruce continued. There's this company looking to revamp their entire packaging line. Going green, sustainable, the whole 9 yards. They need someone with fresh ideas. When can we meet them? Flynn was already reaching for his notebook. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Bruce grinned. Better dust off that presentation you've been tinkering with. I stayed up with Flynn until 3 a.m., refining his pitch, tweaking graphics, running through potential questions. When he finally crashed on the couch, surrounded by notes and sketches, I covered him with a blanket and kept working. At 7 a.m., my phone rang. The screen showed my mother's number, but I sent it to voicemail. 10 minutes later, a text arrived. "Your sister said you're working weekends now. Is Flynn making you pay for his mistakes?" I deleted the message without responding. They didn't understand that this wasn't about paying for mistakes. It was about investing in our future. The next evening, Flynn burst through the door, his tie askew and his eyes wild with excitement. "They loved it! Bruce, tell her!" Bruce followed him in, looking equally elated. "They didn't just love it, they want to fast-track development. Full funding, dedicated team, the works." I dropped the stack of bills I'd been sorting. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious." Flynn swept me into a hug, spinning me around our tiny living room. "Baby, this is it. This is our chance." The moment was interrupted by my phone ringing again. This time it was an old family friend, Margaret. "Tegan, I hate to bother you so late, but—" Her voice cracked. "I need help. The investment group your parents recommended. Something's wrong. All our money, it's gone." My celebration high crashed as Margaret continued. "Your sister said you might know about financial recovery, given what happened with Flynn. Please, I don't know who else to call." I caught Flynn's eye, and he nodded, already understanding. "Come over, Margaret. We'll figure something out." After I hung up, Bruce raised an eyebrow. "Family friend?" "Yeah." I sank onto the couch. "Sounds like she got caught up in that investment group Claire's been pushing on everyone." Flynn sat beside me, his earlier excitement tempered, but not dimmed. "Hey, at least we know something about climbing out of financial holes, right?" I leaned against him, thinking about Margaret's desperate voice, about my family's constant criticism, about the long hours and sacrifices of the past 6 months. "You know what? Maybe everything that happened to us wasn't just bad luck. Maybe it was preparation." Bruce raised his coffee mug in a toast. "To preparation, then, and to proving everybody wrong." Flynn clinked his mug against Bruce's, then mine. To proving everybody wrong. Looking at these two men who believed in our vision, I felt stronger than ever. Margaret would be here soon, and for the first time I had real hope to offer. Not just empty comfort, but actual, practical solutions. Sometimes the worst moments in life really did lead to the best opportunities. "I can't believe you're actually helping Margaret after everything her family said about Flynn." Claire's voice dripped with disdain as she cornered me at Aunt Annalise's monthly Sunday brunch. "It's like you enjoy being everyone's financial saviour." I carefully set down my mimosa. "Someone had to help her. That investment scheme your husband recommended wiped out her retirement fund." Claire's face flushed red. "Don't you dare blame Richard for this. He was just passing along an opportunity that's left half our family friends bankrupt." I grabbed a croissant from the buffet table, needing something to do with my hands. "You know what? Never mind. I'm not having this conversation again." "Girls?" Aunt Annalise appeared between us, her smile tight. "Everything okay here?" "Just perfect," Claire said, but her eyes told a different story. She turned to Annalise. "Did you know Tegan's been giving Margaret financial advice? Apparently, her experience with Flynn's failure makes her an expert now." Annalise's eyebrows shot up. "Actually, I heard Margaret's doing much better. She mentioned Tegan helped her restructure her debt and find part-time consulting work." "That's right," I said, straightening my shoulders. "Flynn and I connected her with some contacts from our new project." "New project?" Mum appeared, joining our little circle. "Please tell me you haven't invested more money in one of Flynn's schemes." "It's not a scheme, Mum. We've secured major funding and—" "Ladies!" Annalise clapped her hands. "Who wants to see my new garden?" But Mum wasn't letting go. "Tegan, honey, I'm worried. First the inheritance, now this. When will you learn? Maybe when you learn to actually listen, I snapped. Flynn and I are building something amazing, but you're all so caught up in your prejudices you can't even see it. I see plenty, Claire muttered. I see my big sister throwing away everything she's worked for. My phone buzzed, a text from Flynn. Big news, call me ASAP. Excuse me, I said, already heading for the patio. I need to take this. Behind me, I heard Claire say to Annalise, you need to talk some sense into her. She's going to end up just like Margaret. I closed the French doors behind me and called Flynn. Baby, you're not going to believe this, he answered on the first ring. The prototype passed all initial testing. They want to fast-track production. My hands shook as I gripped the phone. Are you serious? Already? Bruce is drawing up the contracts now. We're looking at full-scale manufacturing within 6 months. Through the glass doors, I could see my family huddled together, probably discussing my poor life choices. If they only knew. That's not all, Flynn continued. Remember that sustainability conference you mentioned? They want us to be keynote speakers. Us, Tegan, they want our story. I laughed, the sound carrying through the garden. From bankruptcy to keynote in less than a year. Who would have thought? We did. His voice softened. We always knew. After hanging up, I checked my email and found something unexpected. A message from a major business magazine wanting to feature our company's rapid rise and innovative approach to sustainable packaging. The French doors opened and Annalise stepped out. Everything okay? You look different. Everything's perfect. I showed her the email. Still think I made a mistake standing by Flynn? She read it twice, her eyes widening. Tegan, this is... wow. Does your mother know? What do you think? Annalise glanced back through the doors. Maybe it's time to tell them, really tell them. Not yet. I tucked my phone away. Let them stew a little longer. They were so quick to judge us, so certain we'd fail. Let them keep thinking that for now. That's a bit petty, don't you think? Maybe, I smiled, but after months of their criticism and Claire's snide comments, I think I've earned a little pettiness. Annalise laughed softly. You know they're in there right now, planning some kind of intervention. Claire's convinced you're heading for disaster. Let them plan. I straightened my jacket. While they're busy worrying about my choices, Flynn and I are building an empire. An empire built on spite? Annalise raised an eyebrow. No, I said, watching a group of butterflies dance through Annalise's prized roses. An empire built on belief. In ourselves, in each other, in our vision. The spite is just a bonus. My phone buzzed again. Another email, this time from Margaret. She'd landed a full-time position using the skills we'd helped her develop. Coming back inside? Annalise asked. I nodded, squaring my shoulders. Time to face the firing squad. And what will you tell them? Nothing yet. I smiled, thinking of Flynn's news, the magazine feature, the conference. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people underestimate you while you quietly prove them wrong. We walked back inside, where my family waited with their concerns and judgments. Little did they know, their worst fears about my future were already becoming my greatest triumphs. We need more space, Bruce announced, surveying our crowded office, where boxes of prototype packaging samples competed with stacks of contracts and employee applications. This isn't cutting it anymore. Flynn looked up from his laptop, grinning. Already on it. Remember that empty warehouse space on Madison Avenue? The one with the exposed brick and huge windows, I asked, shuffling through resumes. Wasn't that way out of our budget? 3 months ago, yes. Flynn spun his screen around, showing us the lease agreement. Now, we can afford the entire top floor. Bruce whistled. Look at us, moving up in the world. Speaking of moving up, I said, pulling out a particular resume. "I think I found our new head of operations." "The one from the multinational?" Bruce peered over my shoulder. "Better, Margaret." Flynn's eyebrows shot up. "Your family friend, Margaret. She's got 20 years of operations experience, knows our story inside and out, and she's already proved she can rebuild from nothing." I handed them her resume. "Plus, she's been crushing it at that consulting position we connected her with." "I like it," Bruce said, scanning her qualifications. "When can she start?" A knock at the door interrupted us. Our newest intern, Sarah, poked her head in. "Mr. Flynn, the investors are here early." Flynn jumped up, straightening his tie. "Show them to the conference room. We'll be right there." As we gathered our presentation materials, I couldn't help but marvel at how different things felt from just a few months ago. Our small team had grown to 15 people, with more joining every week. The prototype had evolved into a full product line, and major retailers were already placing orders. The meeting went better than we could have hoped. By the end, we'd secured another round of funding and 3 new contracts. As the investors left, one turned back to shake my hand. "Mrs. Summers, your team's growth trajectory is remarkable. You should be very proud." I caught Flynn's eye across the room, sharing a private smile. If only my family could see this moment. Later that afternoon, I decided to surprise Claire with a visit. She'd been oddly quiet lately, not even showing up to the last family dinner. When I pulled up to her house, I noticed the "for sale" sign in the yard. Claire opened the door, her usual perfect appearance slightly dishevelled. "Tegan, what are you doing here?" "Thought I'd check in. You've been missing family events." She hesitated before letting me in. The house was half-packed, boxes everywhere. "Richard and I are downsizing." "Downsizing?" I took in the designer furniture tagged for sale. "Or selling everything?" "Don't." Her voice cracked. "Just don't." "Claire, what happened?" She sank onto a box marked kitchen. The investment group. It wasn't just Margaret who lost everything. We put everything we had into it. Richard's business, our savings, even took out a second mortgage. My stomach dropped. "Does Mum know?" "No one knows. Well, except you now." She laughed bitterly. "Ironic, isn't it? I spent months judging you for standing by Flynn, and now look at me." I sat beside her on the box. "Why didn't you come to me?" "Are you kidding? After everything I said about you and Flynn?" She wiped her eyes. "I couldn't face you." "Claire, I saw your company in the business journal," she interrupted. "The feature about innovative startups changing the packaging industry. You really did it, didn't you? You and Flynn actually made it work." "We did." I pulled out my phone, opening my photos. "Actually, we just leased new office space today. Want to see?" She nodded, and I showed her pictures of the warehouse, our growing team, the product line. With each swipe, her eyes grew wider. "Tegan, this is incredible." "It is." I put my phone away. "And you know what? We're hiring." Claire's head snapped up. "What?" "We need someone to manage our client relations department. Someone detail-oriented, good with people, experienced in high-pressure situations." "You can't be serious." "Why not? You've got the skills, and despite everything, you're still my sister." She stared at me for a long moment. "Why would you help me after how I treated you?" "Because sometimes people deserve a second chance." I stood up, brushing off my skirt. "Think about it. The position starts next month, and it comes with a relocation allowance." As I headed for the door, Claire called out, "Tegan, I'm sorry for everything." "I know." I turned back. "Email me your resume by Friday if you're interested." Driving home, I called Flynn. "Remember how you said we needed someone to handle client relations?" "Yeah, I think I found the perfect candidate." I smiled, thinking of Claire's face when she saw our success. Though fair warning, family dinners might get a lot more interesting. Your father and I need to talk to you." Mum's voice on the phone sounded different, smaller somehow. "Can you come over tonight?" I glanced at my calendar, already packed with meetings. "Mum, I've got a busy day. Can it wait until—" "Please, Tegan." The tremor in her voice made me pause. "It's important." 2 hours later, I pulled into my parents' driveway. The house looked the same as always, pristine lawn, perfect flower beds, but something felt off. Dad's golf clubs were missing from their usual spot by the garage. Mum opened the door before I could knock. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her usually immaculate makeup smudged. "Where's Dad?" I asked, following her into the living room. "Here." His voice came from his favourite armchair, but he didn't stand up. He looked older somehow, defeated. A stack of papers sat on the coffee table in front of him. "What's going on?" Mum perched on the edge of the sofa. "We've made some mistakes." Dad picked up the papers, his hands shaking slightly. "Remember that investment group Claire and Richard were involved with?" My stomach clenched. "Please tell me you didn't." "We thought we were being smart," Mum said, her voice breaking. "The returns seemed guaranteed. We put in everything, our retirement, the house equity, the country club membership," Dad added quietly. "My partner shares in the law firm." I sank into a chair. "How much?" "All of it." Mum started crying. "We're going to lose the house, Tegan. Everything we worked for, gone." The irony wasn't lost on me. Less than a year ago, they'd sat in this same room telling me I was throwing my life away by standing by Flynn. "Have you talked to a lawyer?" I asked. Dad laughed bitterly. "I am a lawyer, and yes, we've explored every option. The money's gone. The investment group was a fraud." "Claire mentioned Richard was involved in running it," I said carefully. "Richard's facing criminal charges," Mum whispered. "He and his partners. They knew it was a Ponzi scheme." My phone buzzed. A text from Flynn. "Meeting went great. Signed 3 new major retailers, coming home with champagne." I turned my phone face down. "Why didn't you come to me sooner?" "Pride," Dad admitted. "After how we treated you and Flynn, we were ashamed." Mom reached for my hand. "We were wrong about him, about you, the way you've turned things around, built this amazing company." "While we lost everything," Dad finished. I stood up, walking to the window. Outside, a for sale sign was already planted in their perfectly manicured lawn, just like Claire's. "You know," I said, still looking out, "we just leased a beautiful new office space. The old building we're in now. It's got 3 furnished apartments upstairs." "Tegan," Mum started. "They're meant for visiting executives, but one of them is empty." I turned back to face them. "It's not huge, but it's nice, and it's paid for." Dad shook his head. "We can't accept charity." "It's not charity." I pulled out my phone, opening our company website. "We need experienced people. Dad, our legal department could use someone with 40 years of corporate law experience. And Mum, your event planning skills would be perfect for our corporate relations team." They stared at me, speechless. "You'd hire us?" Dad's voice was rough. "After everything?" "I'm not just hiring you. I'm offering you a chance to rebuild, just like you should have offered Flynn and me." Mum started crying again. "We don't deserve this." "Maybe not." I sat between them on the sofa. "But family is family, even when they're wrong, even when they hurt you." "The apartment," Dad cleared his throat. "When would it be available?" "Immediately, though there's one condition." They looked at me warily. "You have to attend our company's financial literacy workshop, the one Claire's teaching now." Mum's eyes widened. "Claire's teaching?" "She's actually quite good at it. Turns out, experiencing financial disaster firsthand makes you excellent at helping others avoid it." Dad picked up the stack of papers. Foreclosure notices, I realised, and set them aside. "When can we start?" Monday, I stood up. I'll have HR send over the paperwork. The apartment keys will be at the front desk. As I headed for the door, Mum caught my arm. Tegan, wait. She pulled me into a tight hug. Thank you, and I'm sorry for not believing in you, in Flynn. I know, I hugged her back, but maybe now you understand why I did. Driving home to Flynn and our celebration champagne, I thought about how life had come full circle. A year ago, I'd been the family failure, the cautionary tale. Now, I was their salvation. My phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Mum told me what you did. Thank you for not being as petty as I would have been. I smiled, thinking of our packed office, our growing team, our success built from the ashes of failure. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising so high that those who doubted you have no choice but to look up. This is the one, Flynn announced, leading me through the grand entrance of what could be our new home. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating hardwood floors and soaring ceilings. What do you think? I walked to the windows, taking in the view of the city below. It's incredible. Bruce whistled as he explored the open-concept living area. A far cry from that studio apartment you guys were in last year. That's what makes it perfect. Flynn wrapped his arms around me from behind. Remember sitting on our fold-out couch planning all this? Now look at us. The realtor cleared her throat politely. Shall we see the master suite? As we followed her upstairs, my phone buzzed. A text from Claire. Mum's crying in the break room, again. I sighed. Everything okay at the office? Your mother's still struggling with the adjustment, Bruce said, checking his own messages. But Claire's handling it well. She's really stepped up as team leader. The master bedroom was even more impressive than the living room, with a private terrace and a bathroom bigger than our first apartment. While Flynn discussed details with the realtor, I stepped onto the terrace, calling Claire. She's fine now, Claire answered immediately. Just got overwhelmed during the financial literacy training. Maybe we should pull her from the program. Actually, she asked to stay, said she needs to understand where she went wrong. Claire paused. It's not easy watching our parents learn basic budgeting from their daughters. No, I agreed, but it's necessary. Dad's doing better at least. Legal department loves him. I smiled, remembering how Dad had approached his new role with the same dedication he'd once given his law firm. How's the house hunting going? Found a nice place near the office. Nothing fancy, but it's within my new budget. She laughed softly. Never thought I'd be saying those words. My budget. Flynn appeared at my side, holding up a key. They accepted our offer. Got to go, I told Claire. Family dinner tonight. Wouldn't miss it. Margaret's bringing her famous lasagna. After hanging up, I turned to Flynn. We really doing this? Buying our dream house? We earned it. He pulled me close, though I have one more surprise first. Back at the office, Flynn led me to the conference room. Inside, a team from the leading business magazine was setting up cameras and lighting. What's this? Remember that article they wanted to do? Flynn grinned. They decided to make it a cover story, complete with photo shoot and video interview. Bruce appeared with a garment bag. Your power suit, as requested. You knew about this? Who do you think suggested the cover story angle? Bruce winked. The public loves a good redemption narrative. The next few hours were a whirlwind of photos, interviews, and carefully crafted answers about our journey from bankruptcy to success. The journalist seemed particularly interested in the family aspect. So, you've actually hired the same family members who doubted you? She asked. We believe in second chances, I replied, thinking of Mum's tears, Dad's determination, Claire's transformation. Success means nothing if you can't lift others up along the way. Even those who hurt you? Especially those who hurt you? I smiled. The best revenge is success, but the best success is being able to help others succeed too. After the interview, I found Flynn in his office, drafting a speech for next week's sustainability conference. "Need help?" I asked, perching on his desk. "Always." He showed me his notes. "I'm trying to find the right way to tell our story, the real story, not just the business side." I read what he'd written so far. "A year ago, we lost everything except our belief in each other. Today, we're not just building a company, we're rebuilding families, relationships, and trust." "It's perfect," I said, "just like this day." My phone buzzed again, a message from Aunt Annalise. "Saw the camera crew, finally ready to show the world what I knew all along." "You know what's funny?" I showed Flynn the message. "A year ago, we were so focused on proving everyone wrong. Now we're more interested in proving them right, showing them they can succeed too." "Speaking of success," Bruce poked his head in, "wait until you see tomorrow's numbers. That new retail contract is going to blow your minds." Flynn saved his speech draft. "Should we tell him about the house?" "Tell me what?" "We got it," I said. "The dream house is ours." Bruce raised an imaginary glass. "To the new house?" "To second chances," Flynn added. I thought about our journey, from desperate nights counting pennies to buying our dream home, from family scorn to family healing. "To believing in each other," I said, "even when no one else did." Looking at these two men who'd been there through it all, I felt a profound sense of rightness. We weren't just building a business empire. We were creating a legacy of redemption, one second chance at a time. "Ready for this?" Flynn squeezed my hand as we stood backstage at the annual Family Business Gala. Through the curtain, I could see our entire team seated at the front tables, Claire looking professional in her new suit, Mum and Dad sitting nervously together, Margaret beaming with pride. "Born ready?" I adjusted my microphone. "Though I still can't believe they chose us for the keynote." "Believe it." Bruce appeared, tablet in hand. "Stock price is up 15% just on the announcement that you're speaking." The event coordinator signalled it was time. Flynn kissed my cheek and whispered, "Show them what we're made of." I walked onto the stage, the spotlight warm on my face. Hundreds of faces looked back at me, including several who'd turned down Flynn's business proposals just a year ago. "Most success stories," I began, "start with a moment of triumph. This one starts with a failure, a spectacular $300,000 failure." The room fell silent. 1 year ago, my husband and I lost everything: our savings, our reputation, our standing in the community. I caught Mum's eye in the audience. Even our family's respect. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat. But we had something more valuable than money or reputation. We had belief in each other, in our vision, and in the power of second chances. I clicked to the first slide, a photo of our old studio apartment, covered in spreadsheets and business plans. This was our war room, where we planned our comeback, one budget calculation at a time. Next slide, our first prototype. And this was our hope, a sustainable packaging solution that could revolutionize an industry. The presentation continued, showing our journey from bankruptcy to breakthrough. With each slide, I could see the audience becoming more engaged, more invested in our story. "But success isn't just about proving doubters wrong," I said, clicking to a photo of our current team. "It's about proving believers right, about creating opportunities for others to rise with you." Claire wiped a tear from her eye as I continued. "Today, our company doesn't just produce innovative packaging solutions. We produce second chances. Every employee in this photo has a comeback story, including my own family." I gestured to our front tables. "My sister, who lost everything in an investment scheme, now leads our client relations department and teaches financial literacy." Claire stood, receiving warm applause. "My father, who had to start over after 40 years as a law firm partner, now heads our legal team. Dad stood, standing taller than I'd seen him in months. My mother, I paused as Mom dabbed her eyes, who thought I was throwing my life away by standing by my husband, now runs our corporate events with the same precision and grace she once used to judge our choices. The audience laughed warmly as Mum stood, blushing. And Margaret, our head of operations, who turned her own financial disaster into a blueprint for helping others rebuild. Margaret stood to enthusiastic applause. Flynn joined me on stage as I concluded. 1 year ago, we were the cautionary tale at family dinners. Today, we're proof that rock bottom can be the foundation for something extraordinary. Bruce appeared on my other side, bringing up our latest quarterly results on the screen. The audience gasped at the numbers. But more important than these figures, Flynn took over, is what we've built beyond the balance sheet. A culture of redemption, a family of second chances, a legacy of lifting others as we climb. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. At the reception afterward, Claire pulled me aside. That speech, you could have destroyed us all, exposed our mistakes to everyone. That wouldn't have served any purpose, I said, watching Mum charm potential clients while Dad discussed legal strategies with industry leaders. Success without grace is just revenge. When did you get so wise? She bumped my shoulder playfully. Around the same time you learned humility, I teased back. Across the room, I spotted several investors who'd rejected us last year, now eagerly chatting with Bruce. Margaret was surrounded by people interested in our financial recovery program, while Mum and Dad worked the room like they'd never lost their social standing. Flynn appeared with champagne. To my brilliant wife, who just landed us 3 new major contracts with that speech. To our amazing team, I corrected, who proved that sometimes the worst moments in life are just detours to something better. Claire raised her glass. To second chances. And family, Mom added, joining us with Dad. And revenge served with success, Bruce chimed in, making everyone laugh. Looking around at my family, both blood and chosen, I felt a profound sense of completion. We'd come full circle from shame to triumph, from rejection to redemption. But more importantly, we'd done it together, proving that the best success stories aren't about getting even, but about lifting everyone higher. As the evening wound down, Flynn whispered, "Ready to go home? To our new house?" I smiled, thinking of the journey ahead. Home is wherever we're building something together. The boxes go in the master bedroom, I directed the movers, standing on the steps of our new home. The morning sun caught the windows, making the whole house sparkle. "Still can't believe this is ours," Flynn said, coming up behind me with 2 coffee cups. "Remember when we thought we'd be stuck in that studio forever?" A familiar car pulled into the driveway, Dad's new sedan, much more modest than his old luxury vehicle. He and Mum stepped out, carrying what looked suspiciously like home-cooked breakfast. "We thought you might need sustenance for moving day," Mum called out, holding up a basket of still-warm muffins. "And muscle," Dad added, rolling up his sleeves. "Where do you want me?" Before I could answer, Claire's SUV parked behind them. She emerged with Margaret and Bruce, all carrying boxes labelled kitchen. "Family moving party?" I asked, accepting a muffin from Mum. "More like family everything now," Claire laughed. "Get used to it." We spent the morning unpacking, sharing stories, and transforming the empty house into a home. Mum took charge of organising the kitchen, while Dad and Flynn assembled furniture. Claire and Margaret tackled the office setup, arguing good-naturedly about the best desk arrangement. "Hey, look what I found," Bruce called from the living room. He held up a framed magazine cover, our cover story, now hanging in offices and homes across the country. "That goes in the study," Flynn said, "along with this." He pulled out another frame, our first business plan, coffee-stained and worn around the edges. "Keep those together," Mum suggested, "the before and after, the dream and the reality. Speaking of reality, Claire said, the new financial literacy program launches next week. We've got 30 people signed up already. 32, Margaret corrected. 2 more joined this morning, former executives who lost everything in bad investments. They heard about our story and wanted to learn how to rebuild. Dad paused in his furniture assembly. You know, I used to think losing everything was the worst thing that could happen to a person. Now I realise it can be the best, if you let it teach you something. Like humility, Mum offered, smiling softly. Like family, I added. The doorbell rang, lunch delivery for the moving crew. As everyone gathered in the kitchen, I took a moment to stand on the back terrace, looking out over the city. From here, I could see our office building, its windows gleaming in the distance. Flynn joined me, wrapping an arm around my waist. Penny, for your thoughts? Just thinking about how different everything is, not just the house or the company, but us, all of us. Inside, I could hear Mum laughing at one of Bruce's jokes, Claire discussing business strategy with Dad, Margaret sharing recipes with the moving crew. Remember when they wouldn't even say my name? Flynn mused. Now look at your dad in there, treating me like the son he always wanted. And Mum actually asking my opinion on things instead of telling me what I'm doing wrong. Mrs. Summers? One of the movers appeared at the terrace door. We found this box labelled Important. Where would you like it? I opened the box to find our old budget spreadsheets, the ones we'd used to climb out of debt. The study, I decided, next to the magazine cover. Keeping the reminders close? Flynn asked. Keeping the lessons closer. Back inside, Claire was helping Mum arrange family photos on the wall, old ones mixed with new ones, telling the story of our transformation. This spot needs something, Mum said, pointing to an empty space. I know exactly what goes there. I pulled out a simple frame holding a handwritten note, the one Flynn had left me the morning after we decided to use my inheritance to clear his debt. Thank you for believing in me. We'll prove them all wrong. And you did, Dad said quietly. You proved us all wonderfully, magnificently wrong. Bruce raised his coffee cup. To proving people wrong. To second chances, Margaret added. To family, Mum and Dad said together. To belief, Flynn and I finished. Looking around at these people, my family, both old and new, I realised that success wasn't just about the house or the company or the money. It was about this moment, all of us together, stronger for having been broken, wiser for having failed, closer for having fought. Claire caught my eye and smiled. Ready to hang that last photo? I nodded, taking the frame from her. As I placed it on the wall, completing our family story, I felt Flynn's hand slip into mine. Outside, the city stretched before us, full of possibilities. Inside, our family gathered close, full of love and second chances. This was more than a happy ending. This was a new beginning. For all of us.
The boardroom fell silent as Whitney slid the manila envelope across the polished mahogany table. My heart stopped when I saw the return address. A law firm in Singapore. After 15 years of silence, my father was making his move. I'm Reese, CEO of Schmidt Textiles, though some days I still feel like that 16-year-old girl watching her father pack his bags in the middle of the night. The memory hits me at the strangest times. The smell of rain on asphalt, the sound of wheels on hardwood floors, my mother's quiet sobs from the kitchen. They're requesting financial records going back 5 years, Whitney said, her voice cutting through my thoughts, and a full audit of company holdings. I forced myself to breathe normally as I scanned the documents. He's got some nerve, showing up now that we've turned things around. The board needs to know, Whitney warned, before the rumours start flying. She was right, of course. Whitney had been my rock through the company's transformation. From the struggling workshop my mother ran to the international brand we'd built, she knew exactly what this meant. The vultures were circling, Call an emergency meeting, I said. Today, 3 hours later, I stood before our board members, my mother's old sewing scissors hanging from a chain around my neck. They were my good luck charm, a reminder of where we started. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, I've called you here because my father, Philip Schmidt, has made contact through his attorneys. The room erupted in whispers. Caleb, our senior board member, leaned forward. What exactly does he want? What he always wanted. Money without the work. I projected the financial charts onto the screen behind me. In the 15 years since he abandoned this company, we've grown from a local textile workshop to a global enterprise worth over $50 million. Now he's claiming his share. Does he have any legal standing? Teddy, our legal counsel, asked. That's what we need to determine. I clicked to the next slide. But I want to be clear. I will not let him destroy what we've built. My mother spent nights at that sewing machine while he was living it up with his secretary in Asia. Every thread of this company's success was earned through our sweat, not his. Samara, our youngest executive, raised her hand. What's our PR strategy if this goes public? Transparency, I replied. We tell our story. How a single mother and her daughter turned a failing business into an empire. How every employee in this room contributed to that success. The meeting continued for another hour, but I barely heard the discussions. My mind kept drifting to that rainy night, to the sound of his car pulling away, to my mother's face as she picked up her scissors the next morning and got back to work. After the meeting, Whitney caught up with me in the hallway. You okay? I have to stop by Mum's tonight, I said, fingering the scissors at my neck. She needs to know. Want me to come with? I shook my head. This one's on me, but I need you to start digging. My father didn't spend 15 years in Asia just sightseeing. There's something else going on here. Already on it, Whitney smiled. Teddy's reaching out to his contacts in Singapore. That evening, I sat in my mother's kitchen, watching her prepare dinner like she had thousands of times before. Her hands were still steady, still strong from years of guiding fabric through machines. I always knew he'd come back, she said, not looking up from the vegetables she was chopping. Men like your father, they can't stand to see others succeed where they failed. Mum, I'm so sorry, she set down her knife. Don't you dare apologize for him. You built something beautiful from his mess. Now he wants to take credit? She reached across the counter and grabbed my hand. Show him exactly who you've become. I squeezed her hand, feeling the calluses earned from years of work. I will. My phone buzzed. A text from Whitney. Found something. Meet me at the office first thing tomorrow. You need to see this. I looked at my mother, remembering how she'd taught me to thread a needle in this very kitchen, how to make something whole from broken pieces. He's not getting a single thread, I promised her. She nodded, a fierce pride in her eyes. Then you better get to work. As I drove home that night, the rain started again, just like it had 15 years ago. But this time, I wasn't that helpless teenager watching her world fall apart. I was Reese Schmidt, and I was ready for war. Whitney's discovery couldn't wait until morning. I found her in the office at midnight, surrounded by stacks of papers and empty coffee cups. The moment I walked in, she thrust a folder into my hands. Look at the signature dates, she said, pointing to a series of documents. Your father's been planning this for months. Before I could respond, the security desk called, Ms. Reese, there's someone here to see you. My blood ran cold. I knew who it was before the guard finished speaking. He's not on the approved list, but he says he's your father. Whitney grabbed my arm. You don't have to see him. Yes, I do. I straightened my blazer. Send him up. 5 minutes later, I watched him walk through the door. 15 years had turned his hair grey and carved deep lines around his mouth. But his swagger hadn't changed. He still moved like he owned the room. Hello, sweetheart, he said, arms open as if expecting a hug. I stayed behind my desk. It's Ms. Schmidt in this building. He laughed, dropping his arms. Always so serious. Just like your mother. His eyes swept the office, taking in the awards on the walls, the view of the city. You've done well for yourself. Though I suppose I should say ourselves. This is still a family business, after all. Family? I couldn't keep the bitter laugh from escaping. Is that what you call disappearing with your secretary for 15 years? Lorelei was a mistake, he said, settling uninvited into one of my visitor chairs. I've come to make things right. Whitney stepped forward. By demanding company records, by threatening legal action. Ah, Whitney, he smiled at her. Still playing guard dog, I see. I taught you better than that. You taught me plenty, Whitney shot back, like how to spot a con artist. His smile tightened. I'm here to talk to my daughter, privately. She stays, I said. Now, what do you want? He pulled out a thick envelope. I've had my accountants review the company's public filings. Very impressive growth. But as a founding member of Schmidt Textiles, I'm entitled to my share. Your share? I stood up, bracing my hands on the desk. Your share walked out the door with you 15 years ago, remember? The night you cleaned out the business account and left Mom with nothing but debt and a mortgage? Ancient history, he waved his hand dismissively. I'm offering you a chance to avoid an ugly legal battle. 25% of current company value plus a board seat. Whitney snorted. You're delusional. I built the foundation of this company, he said, voice hardening. Everything you've accomplished started with my work, my connections. Your work? I grabbed my mother's scissors from around my neck, slamming them onto the desk. These scissors built this company. Mum's hands built this company. While you were living it up in Asia, she was working 18-hour days to keep the lights on. Where were your connections then? He stood slowly, straightening his expensive suit. I see you need time to think this through. My lawyers will be in touch. He headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and sweetheart, don't bother digging into my business dealings abroad. Some doors are better left closed. After he left, Whitney touched my shoulder. You okay? I realized I was shaking. He's broke. Did you see his watch? It's a fake. The suit too. Good knockoff, but I know our fabrics. He's desperate. That makes him dangerous, Whitney warned. What did he mean about his business dealings? I picked up my mother's scissors, running my finger along the blade. It means we're looking in the right place. Call Teddy. Tell him to focus on Singapore, especially the last 2 years. My father didn't come back because he missed us. He came back because he needs something. Reese, Whitney hesitated. Are you sure you want to do this? Fighting him could get ugly. Ugly? I laughed. Ugly was watching Mom cry herself to sleep every night. Ugly was working after school to help pay bills while my friends went to parties. He wants ugly? I'll show him ugly. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Everything okay? I typed back. He was here. I'm handling it. Her response came quickly. Remember who you are. You're stronger than his games. I looked at the scissors on my desk, then at Whitney. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start digging. I want to know everything. Where he's been, who he's worked with, what he's hiding. He thinks he can walk back in here and take what we built. He has no idea what I'm capable of. Whitney gathered her things, then paused at the door. Just don't lose yourself in this, okay? But as I stared out at the city lights, I wondered if I hadn't lost something already. The daughter who once longed for her father's approval was gone. In her place stood someone harder, someone ready to fight fire with fire. I picked up my phone and texted Teddy, whatever it takes, find what he's hiding. Teddy burst into my office 3 days later, waving a stack of papers. You're not going to believe what I found. I muted my video call. Give me 2 minutes. Now, Reese, trust me. Something in his voice made me end the call immediately. What is it? He spread the documents across my desk, bank statements, contracts, and what looked like police reports in multiple languages. Your father's been busy in Asia. Very busy. And not in a good way. Whitney walked in as Teddy was explaining. Those textile factories he claimed to be partnering with? They don't exist. He's been running a sophisticated import scam, using fake companies to launder money. For who? I asked, scanning the papers. That's where it gets interesting, Teddy said. Remember that big textile consortium that tried to buy us out last year? Guess who was feeding them inside information about our operations? My stomach dropped. My father. Bingo! He's been working as their consultant, helping them target family-owned businesses for hostile takeovers. But here's the kicker. He's been skimming from them too. And they just figured it out. Whitney picked up one of the documents. Is this why he came back? He needs a safe harbor. More than that, Teddy said. He needs legitimate business credentials to avoid prosecution in Singapore. A board position here would give him exactly that. I sat back, letting it sink in. So he's not just after money. He needs us to save him from his own mess. There's more, Teddy hesitated. I found Lorelei. My head snapped up. His secretary? Ex-secretary, Whitney corrected. She's back in the States, working at a small accounting firm in Boston. She might know things, I said slowly. Details that aren't in these papers. Already ahead of you. Teddy handed me a business card. She's expecting your call. I stared at the card, remembering the last time I'd seen Lorelei, young, beautiful, hanging on my father's arm as they walked out of our lives. Now she might be the key to stopping him. I'm flying to Boston, I announced, standing up. Reese, wait, Whitney grabbed my arm. Think about what you're doing. This isn't just business anymore. You're talking about destroying your father. He destroyed himself, I snapped. I'm just making sure he doesn't take us down with him. Is that really what this is about? She challenged. Or are you still trying to punish him for leaving? Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was Caleb from the board. Reese, we have a situation. Your father just called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Says he has evidence of financial misconduct by current management. He's bluffing, I said, but my voice shook. Maybe, Caleb replied, but he's convinced 2 other board members to support his motion for a leadership review. I hung up and looked at Whitney and Teddy. Change of plans. Book me on the next flight to Boston. I need to talk to Lorelei tonight. I'm coming with you, Whitney said firmly. No, I need you here. Work with Teddy, prepare a response to whatever accusations my father's cooking up, and get our PR team ready. This is about to get messy. 3 hours later, I sat in a quiet Boston coffee shop, watching Lorelei walk through the door. She'd aged like we all had, but gracefully. She spotted me immediately. You look just like your mother, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Why did you agree to meet me? She pulled out her own stack of papers. Because it's time someone stopped him. And because I owe you and your mother an apology that's 15 years overdue. I don't want your apology, I said. I want information. How about both? She pushed the papers toward me. These are copies of every transaction, every scheme, every lie he's told for the past 15 years, including what he's planning to do to your company. I leafed through them, my hands trembling. Why are you giving me this? Because I was young and stupid once, and I believed his promises. By the time I realized what kind of man he really was, I was in too deep. This is my chance to make it right. My phone buzzed. Another text from Whitney. Your father's called a press conference for tomorrow afternoon. Whatever you're going to do it fast. I looked back at Lorelei. I need you to tell me everything, and then I need you to repeat it to my board. She nodded, pulling out a recorder. Where should I start? Start with Singapore, I said, thinking of my mother's scissors hanging around my neck. Start with the truth. I barely made it back to the office before dawn, clutching Lorelei's documents like a shield. Whitney was waiting in the lobby, dark circles under her eyes matching mine. Your father's already here, she said, falling into step beside me. He's in the boardroom with Caleb and 2 other directors. Perfect. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Lorelei, you're on speaker. Are you ready? Ready. Her voice crackled through the line. The video conference link is set up. We pushed through the boardroom doors. My father stood at the head of the table looking smugly confident in another knockoff suit. His smile faltered when he saw me. Sweetheart, this is a private meeting. Cut the act, I interrupted, connecting my laptop to the room's display. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Lorelei Santiago. You might remember her as my father's former secretary. Lorelei's face appeared on the screen, and I watched my father's complexion turn ashen. "Hello, Philip," she said coldly. "Shall I tell them about the factories in Singapore? Or would you prefer to start with the money laundering?" "This is ridiculous," he sputtered, reaching for his briefcase. "I won't stand here and listen to—" "Sit down," Caleb commanded. "I think we all need to hear this." For the next 30 minutes, Lorelei laid it all out. The fake companies, the stolen funds, the insider trading. With each revelation, my father seemed to shrink in his chair. "That's enough," he finally shouted, standing up. "These are baseless accusations from a disgruntled ex-employee." I pulled out the documents. "Everything she's saying is right here. Bank statements, contracts, even photos. Would you like to explain this one?" I held up a picture of him shaking hands with the CEO of our biggest competitor. This was taken 2 days before they tried to hostile take over our company last year. The boardroom erupted in angry murmurs. Caleb snatched the photo, his face reddening. "You were working against us the entire time," he demanded. "It's not what it looks like," my father protested. "I was gathering intelligence. For them," I cut in, "while taking a percentage of every deal, until they caught you skimming extra off the top." Whitney stepped forward with another document. "This is a warrant for your arrest in Singapore. Fraud, embezzlement, corporate espionage. Is this why you really came back? Hoping to hide behind our company's reputation?" My father's facade finally cracked. "You don't understand. These people, they're dangerous. I needed protection." "So you thought you'd sacrifice our company to save yourself?" I leaned across the table. "Just like you sacrificed our family 15 years ago." "I made mistakes," he admitted, his voice breaking. "But I'm still your father." "No," I said quietly. "You're just a man who taught me exactly what kind of person I never want to be." Caleb cleared his throat. "I move to reject any and all claims Philip has made against this company and its current management, and to formally bar him from any future association with Schmidt Textiles." "Seconded," another director called out. "You can't do this," my father pleaded. "I helped build this company." "And we rebuilt it after you destroyed it," I replied. "The vote, please?" It was unanimous. As security arrived to escort him out, my father turned to me one last time. "You'll regret this, Reese. You have no idea what you're dealing with." "Actually, I do." I held up my mother's scissors. "I'm dealing with a coward who's run away from every hard thing in his life. But I'm not running, Dad. I'm standing right here protecting what matters." After he was gone, Caleb approached me. "We should discuss damage control. If this gets out—" "When?" I corrected. "When this gets out. We're going to tell the whole story. No more hiding, no more secrets." "It could hurt the company's stock price," Whitney warned. "Maybe, but I'd rather take a temporary hit than live with lies." I turned back to the screen where Lorelei was still watching. "Thank you for everything." She nodded. "Take care of your mother. She deserves to know she raised one hell of a daughter." After the board dispersed, Whitney stayed behind. "You okay?" "No," I admitted, "but I will be." I picked up my phone to call my mother, then paused. He was right about one thing, though. Those people he was working with in Singapore, if they're as dangerous as he says— "Already on it," Whitney assured me. "Teddy's working with our security team to upgrade protocols, and Caleb's reaching out to his contacts in international banking to protect our assets." I looked around the boardroom, thinking of all the meetings my father must have held here years ago, all the deals and decisions that shaped our company's early days. "You know what's funny?" I said. "He spent 15 years chasing schemes and shortcuts, and all he had to do was stay here and do the work." Whitney squeezed my shoulder. "Come on, let's go tell your mother she doesn't have to worry about him anymore." But as we left the boardroom, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. My father's last words felt less like a threat and more like a warning. The news broke faster than we expected. By evening, every business channel was running the story. Schmidt Textiles CEO exposes father's international fraud scheme. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications. I was at my mother's house when the first real trouble hit. Teddy's call interrupted our dinner. "Turn on the news," he said urgently. "Your father's giving a press conference." Mom and I watched in stunned silence as my father stood before a crowd of reporters, looking appropriately devastated in what I noticed was finally a real designer suit. "My daughter's accusations are a sad attempt to rewrite history," he said, his voice trembling perfectly. "Yes, I made mistakes as a young man, leaving my family. But I've spent 15 years building legitimate businesses in Asia, only to have my own daughter fabricate evidence to destroy me." "He's good," Mom muttered, pouring more wine. "Always knew how to play the victim." My phone rang again, Whitney this time. "Our stock's down 12% in after-hours trading. The board's panicking." "Call an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning," I started, but Mom grabbed my phone. "No more meetings tonight," she said firmly. "Whitney, tell the board to wait." "Mom, You need to breathe." She turned off my phone. "You're playing his game now, rushing around, reacting to every move. That's exactly what he wants." "What choice do I have? He's destroying everything we built." "No," she said quietly. "You're letting him destroy your peace. Again." She walked to her sewing room and returned with an old leather portfolio. "Remember this?" I opened it carefully. Inside were the original sketches for our first successful clothing line, the one that saved the company after he left. "You were 16, Mom continued. "Everyone said we were finished, but you sat at this table every night drawing these designs, planning our future. You weren't angry then. You were determined. That was different." "Why? Because now you have more to lose?" She took my hands. "Or because now you have the power to hurt him back?" Before I could answer, someone pounded on the front door. Through the window, I saw reporters gathering on the lawn. "Ms. Schmidt, can you respond to your father's allegations? Is it true you fabricated evidence? Did you orchestrate this scandal to maintain control of the company?" Mom calmly drew the curtains. "Remember when you were learning to sew? What did I always tell you? Measure twice, cut once," I replied automatically. "Exactly. Right now you're cutting without measuring. Fighting fire with fire might feel good, but it burns everything down." My emergency phone, the one Whitney insisted I keep on, buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number, but I knew who it was. "Meet me at the old workshop. Just you. 1 hour. Dad." Mom read the message over my shoulder. "Are you going?" "I have to know what he's planning," she nodded slowly. "Then remember who you are. Not just my daughter or his daughter. Remember the woman who built an empire from scraps." The old workshop was dark when I arrived, but I could see his silhouette through the dusty windows. Inside, he stood among the abandoned sewing machines, looking oddly vulnerable. "Nice press conference," I said. "The suit's real this time. Had to look the part." He gestured around. "Remember when this place was everything? It still is. Everything you threw away." "I didn't come to fight," he sighed. "I came to make a deal. Another one, like the deals you made in Singapore. Those people, they're coming here, Reese. They're not just after me anymore. The company's fourth quarter projections, the new factory contracts, they know everything." I felt cold. "What have you done?" "I can help you stop them, but I need something in return." "Of course you do." I turned to leave, but his next words froze me in place. "They have proof that some of our early funding came from questionable sources that could implicate your mother." I spun back. "You're lying." "Am I? Where do you think I got the money to start this company? Those first few years. Did you never wonder?" My hands shook as I grabbed my mother's scissors from around my neck. "Get out." "Think about it," he said, heading for the door. "You have until tomorrow. After that, everything burns." I stood in the dark workshop long after he left, running my fingers along the old machines. Mom was right. I had been playing his game, letting anger drive every decision. My phone buzzed again. "Whitney, you okay? Tracked your phone to the workshop." I texted back, "Call Teddy and Caleb. Meeting at my place in an hour. Time to stop reacting and start planning." Looking around one last time, I made a promise to the 16-year-old girl who once sketched designs here by flashlight. This time, we wouldn't just survive my father's chaos. We would end it. He's lying about Mom, I announced to the group gathered in my living room. He has to be. Teddy spread files across my coffee table. Maybe, but we need to be sure. Those early company records are spotty at best. I've been going through everything, Whitney added. There's a 6-month period where the financial records just don't add up. Right after your father started the company. Caleb leaned forward. What kind of numbers are we talking about? $500,000, Whitney said quietly. Appeared out of nowhere in 1992. My stomach churned. That's impossible. Mom would have known. Would she? Teddy asked gently. Your father handled all the finances back then, right? Before I could respond, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my mother, holding a familiar metal box. I heard you were all meeting, she said, walking in. Thought you might need this. She set the box on the table and opened it. Inside were stacks of yellowed papers, receipts, and photographs. Mum, what is this? Everything I never told you about your father's startup money. She pulled out a document. I kept copies of everything. Call it insurance. Whitney grabbed the paper, her eyes widening. This is a loan agreement with the same people he's working with now, Mum finished. Yes, but look at the last page. Teddy flipped to it and whistled. You bought out the loan, in cash. Every penny, Mum nodded. Sold my parents' house, my car, even my wedding ring. Paid them off before you were old enough to remember, Reese. Your father never knew. But why keep it secret? I asked. Because men like your father, men like his business partners, they only have power if you're afraid of them. She touched my cheek. I wanted you to build this company without fear. Caleb stood up. This changes everything. If we can prove you cleared that debt, we can prove his current threats are empty, Whitney finished. But what about his other claims? The evidence he says he has? Mum pulled out her phone. Call Lorelei. She needs to hear this too. 20 minutes later, Lorelei's face filled my laptop screen. When Mum showed her the documents, she started laughing. Oh, Philip, she said. He never knew about this. No wonder they're so angry with him. He's been promising them leverage he doesn't have. What do you mean? I asked. Those dangerous people he's working with. They've funded several companies over the years. Their standard practice is to keep partial ownership, hidden in the paperwork. They think they still own part of Schmidt Textiles through that original loan. But they don't, Teddy grinned. Because you bought them out, Leah. Legally and completely. We need to move fast, Whitney said. Your father's press conference brought him sympathy. The market's nervous. Then we end this tomorrow, I decided. Mum, will you testify to the board? Better, she smiled. I'll testify to the world. Time everyone knew what really happened after your father left. We worked through the night, building our case. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from my father. Time's running out, made your decision. I showed it to Mom. She took my phone and typed, meeting tomorrow 9 a.m. Bring your friends. Mom, I protested. We can't let those people. Yes, we can, she said firmly, because this time we're ready for them. Dawn found us still planning. Whitney passed out coffee while Teddy rehearsed Mom's statement. Caleb worked the phones, ensuring every board member and key shareholder would attend. One thing bothers me, Lorelei said from the screen. Your father's too confident. He must have something else planned. He does, I realized suddenly. Whitney, remember those contracts he was looking at during the hostile takeover attempt? The ones about voting rights? But those were rejected. Check again. He had access to our systems for years. What if he changed something? Teddy's fingers flew over his laptop. Got it. There's a buried clause about proxy voting in crisis situations. If the company faces criminal investigation, the board can be temporarily suspended, Caleb finished, leaving control to the original founders. He's going to try to force an investigation, I said. That's his play. Mom picked up her old scissors from the table, testing the blade. Then we better make sure our cut is clean and final. As everyone gathered their things to prepare for the morning, Mom pulled me aside. Whatever happens tomorrow, she said, remember what these scissors taught us. A straight cut, made with confidence, can't be undone. I hugged her tight. I love you, Mum. I love you too, she whispered. Now let's go show your father what real business looks like. The boardroom was packed. News cameras lined the back wall, their red lights blinking like warning signals. My father sat at one end of the table, flanked by two men in expensive suits who radiated quiet menace. I recognized them from Lorelei's photos, the real power behind his schemes. Before we begin, my father announced, standing up, I have evidence of serious financial irregularities. Sit down, Philip, Mom said, walking in. The room fell silent. She hadn't set foot in this boardroom since the divorce. Leah, he stammered, this is a closed meeting. Not anymore. She placed the metal box on the table. Since you're so interested in the company's early finances, let's talk about them. One of the men beside my father leaned forward. Ms. Schmidt, we have documentation showing our organization's stake in. You mean this documentation? I slid copies of Mum's loan repayment across the table. The stake you think you have was bought out 25 years ago. By her. The man's face darkened. That's impossible. Philip assured you of many things. Lorelei's voice came through the speakers. We'd set up a video feed so she could testify. Just like he assured me about the legitimate businesses in Singapore. Should we discuss those next? My father jumped up. This is a coordinated attack. They're trying to... For once in your life, Mum cut him off, stop lying. She opened the metal box and began laying out documents, photographs, bank statements. Here's the truth. My husband started this company with borrowed money. Money I repaid by selling everything I owned. When he left us for his secretary, he tried to empty our accounts. But I'd already moved most of it because I knew. I always knew what kind of man he was. The reporters were scribbling frantically. The board members leaned in, examining the evidence. After he abandoned us, Mum continued, my daughter and I rebuilt this company, not with schemes or stolen money, but with work. Real work. She pulled out old design sketches, my teenage drawings. These are the designs that saved us. While Philip was running cons in Asia, Reese was learning the business from the ground up. Enough, my father shouted. I'm invoking the crisis clause as a founding member. You're not a member of anything anymore, Caleb interrupted, sliding forward another document. The board voted unanimously last night. Your shares are being frozen pending criminal investigation. Not of us, Philip, of you. The two men beside my father stood up abruptly. This meeting is over. Actually, Teddy said from the doorway, it's just beginning. He stepped aside to reveal two FBI agents. These gentlemen would like to discuss some international banking regulations with you. What happened next was chaos. My father tried to run, but security stopped him. His business partners were handcuffed while protesting diplomatic immunity. Reporters shouted questions as cameras flashed. Through it all, Mum stood calmly, one hand on the metal box that had protected her secrets for so long. My father looked at me one last time as the agents led him out. Reese, please, I'm still your father. No, I said quietly. You're just a cautionary tale. After the room cleared, only the board members remained. Caleb stood up. I think we've all seen enough. I moved to permanently bar Philip from any association with this company and to formally recognize Leah's contribution to our founding history. The vote was unanimous again. Mom picked up her box. Well, that's done. I should get back to my sewing. Mom, wait. I grabbed her hand. Stay. Please. We could use your wisdom here. She smiled. You haven't needed my wisdom in a long time, sweetheart, but I'm proud of you, so proud. Whitney appeared at my shoulder. Stocks already rebounding. The market loves a good redemption story, especially one with documented proof. Speaking of documentation, Teddy added, the FBI wants to talk to Lorelei about testifying in their larger investigation. Looks like your father's friends have been running this scam across multiple companies. I touched the scissors at my neck. Will you testify, Mom? Of course, she said. It's time to close this chapter properly, with a clean cut. As we left the boardroom, reporters swarmed us again. Ms. Schmidt, how does it feel to expose your father's fraud? I looked at Mom, then back at the cameras. This isn't a story about fraud. It's a story about legacy, about how two women took a failing company and turned it into something extraordinary. My father thought he could come back and claim credit for our success, but he forgot one important thing. "What's that?" a reporter asked. I held up Mom's scissors. The strongest threads are the ones woven with truth. Later that night, as we celebrated at Mom's house, Whitney raised her glass. "To the real Schmidt Textiles dynasty." "No," Mom corrected, smiling at me. "To the future. And to cutting away the past when it no longer serves us." I hugged her tight, feeling the weight of the scissors against my heart, knowing we'd finally cut the last thread binding us to my father's lies. The morning newspaper landed on my desk with a thud. Whitney pointed to the headline, "Former CEO pleads guilty in international fraud case." "He took the deal," she said. 10 years. Reduced if he cooperates with the ongoing investigation. I pushed the paper aside. "Good, let's focus on what matters." We walked together to our newly renovated workshop floor. The space hummed with activity, designers sketching, seamstresses working at modern machines, young apprentices learning the craft. At the center of it all sat Mom, teaching a group of women how to properly measure and cut fabric. "Remember," she was saying, "your first cut sets the pattern for everything that follows." "Speaking of patterns," Whitney smiled, "show her." I pulled out the latest sales figures. Our stock had not only recovered but soared. The story of our company's true origins had resonated with people in ways we never expected. "Mom," I called out. "Got a minute?" She finished her demonstration and joined us. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, but I need your opinion on something." I led her to my office and unveiled the designs on my wall. "Our new line. I'm calling it Legacy." She touched the sketches gently. Each piece incorporated elements from those original designs I'd drawn as a teenager, reimagined for a modern market. "These are beautiful," she whispered. "But why now?" "Because it's time to tell our story our way. Not as victims or survivors, but as creators." I pointed to the centerpiece design. "See this pattern? It's based on your old scissors." A knock at the door interrupted us. Teddy entered with Samara, our youngest executive. "The apprenticeship program documents are ready," Samara announced. 20 full scholarships for young women from underprivileged backgrounds, complete with mentorship and job placement. Mom's eyes welled up. "You're really doing this?" "We're doing this," I corrected. "The Leah Schmidt Foundation for Women in Business, because every daughter deserves a chance to build her own empire." "Speaking of building," Whitney added, "the board approved the expansion. We're converting the old storage floor into an innovation center, small business incubator, design labs, training facilities. And guess who's running it?" I grinned at Mom. She shook her head. "Reese, I'm retired." "You're experienced," I interrupted. "Who better to guide the next generation than the woman who built all this twice?" Before she could protest, Caleb burst in. "Turn on the news." On the screen, one of my father's former business partners was being led into court. The ticker showed their entire network crumbling, companies across Asia being investigated. "That's the last of them," Teddy said. "Your father's testimony opened the floodgates." I felt a weight lift that I hadn't even realized I was carrying. Mom squeezed my hand. "Now that's done," she said firmly. "Let me see those scholarship applications." We spent the rest of the morning reviewing candidates. Each story reminded me of our own, young women fighting against odds, determined to create something meaningful. "Remember what you said in that first board meeting?" Whitney asked. "About telling our story? About transparency?" I nodded. "Well, look around. This is our real story, not the scandal, not the revenge. This." She was right. The room buzzed with purpose. Samara explaining the mentorship program to Mom, Teddy reviewing contracts for the Innovation Center, young designers sketching their dreams into reality. "Ms. Reese," one of the apprentices appeared at the door. "Could you help me with this pattern?" "Go," Mom smiled. "I'll handle things here." At the cutting table, I showed the young woman how to hold the scissors, how to make that crucial first cut. Her hands shook slightly, just like mine had once done. What if I mess up? She asked. Then you learn from it, I said, touching the scissors at my neck. And you try again. That's the real secret to success. Looking around the workshop, I saw not just employees, but a community. Women supporting women, experience guiding innovation, strength building strength. This was the empire I'd really been fighting for. Not one built on revenge or resentment, but on opportunity and growth. Mum joined us at the cutting table. Without a word, she adjusted the apprentice's grip slightly, nodding in approval at the clean line she cut. Perfect, Mum said. Now you're ready to create something new. I watched them work together, the past and future aligned in perfect symmetry. My father had tried to claim our success, but he'd never understood its true source. It wasn't in the money or the machines or even the designs. It was in moments like this. The passing of knowledge, the sharing of strength, the quiet pride of women lifting each other up. Mum, I said softly, I think it's time to retire these. I touched the old scissors at my neck. She smiled, understanding immediately. Together we hung them in a place of honor on the workshop wall. For inspiration, I told the apprentice, to remind us all where we came from and how far we can go. The scissors caught the light, their well-worn blades still sharp and true, ready to inspire the next generation of dreams.